Look, before we kick off, quick one for anyone who has said, right, this is the year, more times than they want to admit. New Year's resolutions, eh? Well, Power B is a full meal replacement shake exclusively from Nature B. It's not a snack. It's not a gimmick. It is an actual meal. It's the only shake in Australia with Nature B's Power Pollen built in, plus grass-fed whey protein and probiotics for gut health. Now, 2 shakes a day alongside a balanced diet and exercise, and it's as simple as that. Grab the intro pack for $39.95 at natureb.com. And if you grab a couple of the other goodies and spend over $79.90 before January 30, you go into the draw to win that fantastic $20,000 worth of luxury travel. Plus, if it's not for you, well, there's a 100% money-back guarantee. Follow the links in the description or head to natureb.com.
In a world where voices are silenced,
Please.
one man refuses to lie down.
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
He's been punted not once,
40 years they've been trying.
not twice,
You couldn't fire somebody if they were horrible, doing a terrible job.
but 3 times.
You're fired.
He doesn't tell you what to think, but gives you something to think about. Welcome to the Bonafide podcast with Luke Bonar. And he's not
All right, here we go.
done
Hold your ears, folks.
yet.
It's showtime.
So, g'day folks, and welcome to another Bonafide extravaganza. We like to think every podcast is an extravaganza. It's episode number 78 officially, and the millennial is once again with me. I hope you're feeling better than you were on the weekend. You were a little bit,
Yes, I had a 30th to go to, and it was Nathan's best friend's 30th. So I had to, show support by staying out, and I just don't have it in me anymore. Hangovers are totally different at this age.
I've got to say this, and I said this to your mum, 30 or under, you think you're absolutely bulletproof on a Saturday night. It's not till Sunday morning you realise you're not.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah. So anyway, we've got a bit coming up today. Kelsey, we've had a lot of messages from people asking how they can support the podcast. And we've had a lot of messages from people with thoughts and suggestions on the podcast. So what have you come up with?
So we thought we would set up a subscriber page. We've done that on Facebook. Obviously, we'll be posting extra content and stuff there. But as you guys know, you guys are kind of like our second producers of the podcast. So we thought this would be a way that we can bring you special people together. Obviously, it's not necessary either. We love you regardless, and we'll still read all of your messages regardless if you subscribe or not. It's completely up to you. But we just thought, for those that did want to support us and did want to keep the podcast going, then this would be a good way to do that. I think it's like $7 a month or something. I'll put the link to it in the description. Yeah, I think the first thing on the agenda is getting the designs of the T-shirts approved because we got some mocks back and now we just need to decide if this is what we're going with. So
We got mocks back.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of the mocks.
well, you don't really get a say on it, really.
No, it's just my name attached to it.
Absolutely.
I'm very keen to see the mocks.
Maybe.
Or are they schmocks?
Maybe we should make a Bonafide 90.
I think you should. And I would wear it. I think
know
we
you
need
would.
a bona fide. It's not a nightie, it's a nightgown.
No, it's a
for God's
nightie.
sake. It's a nightgown.
I don't know if that's better.
It's a wee willy winky nightgown.
Please don't. Ever. Ugh, gross.
Anyway, coming up, we're going to talk employment issues with Graham Wynn. Some interesting stuff there. Also, you released a little bit early a teaser to Matt Canavan, who is a senator, a National Party senator. He likes to stay behind the scenes. Actually, I don't think he does. I think he'd like to be back in the shadow once again, back in government. But he's had a lot to say about the challenge to David Littleproud's leadership of the Nationals. It's an interesting chat.
Absolutely. I just love how politicians are so good at scooting around the question, which is what they have to do, right? Like they can't they can't wear all of their cards on their chest. That's not the right saying, but you know what I mean, right? Like they can't give everything away. Like they're under
They can't
like
wear
rules.
all of their cards on their chest.
You know what I mean?
They can't show their hand. They keep their cards close to their chest.
Yes.
And they like to keep their powder dry. There you go.
Although you like to take a shot at revealing those cards, although I don't think you've been successful yet. But
I think
I think the only politicians that maybe don't do that I've seen in play are Bob Catter and Pauline Hanson. They're not very good at keeping their card. Oh, Pauline Hanson, I think there's a reputation that maybe she doesn't. She puts everything out on the line. But I don't think that's actually true. I think she's very strategic with what she reveals and when.
Well, I've got to tell you, she's very popular at the moment. As of today, her support has leapt to 26%. 26%. And support for the former coalition parties fell from 26 to 19% today.
But what poll
Pauline
is that? Because if it was like the Australian poll or something, I guarantee you they're not polling young people. I feel like the results would be very different if they were polling young people.
It's a news poll.
Yeah, I'd be keen to know who it is that they're actually surveying, because I just
Well, they
feel
ring
like
random people.
I know, but like I want to know like what the skew is of the age groups and stuff, because you know what, Luke, I was talking to the birthday boy's dad at the 30th and we were talking politics like I always seem to do. No, but he is a lifelong Conservative voter and he said that he doesn't know what to do. He won't vote for Susan Lee because he doesn't think that she's good for the coalition. He doesn't know what to do or who to vote for. And I said, well, what will you do? Just a donkey vote then? He's like, I don't know, because he doesn't want to vote for One Nation either. Wouldn't vote for Teals either. So he's like, I honestly don't know what to do, because he was like, I won't cast a vote for Susan Lee because I think it's totally against. So he's either not voting at all or, I don't know, something's got to change, at least for him.
I've got to tell you this, Angus Taylor is rearing his head as the possible challenger to Susan Lee, and we won't find that out till next week. Andrew Hastie, I think, has ducked his head down a little, but that's at this stage. But we'll have to work out and see what's going on. Now, you put me in touch with another podcaster. His name is James Mackay. He's a young fella who's been following my career for a while, apparently, but I wasn't number one on his hit list.
No.
I was way down the list. But anyway, we had a chat.
Yes, and we are going to play that chat on today's podcast. So if you're a sicko and want to know more about Luke's life story, then you'll be able to hear that.
Or skip it.
Or just skip
it.
Skip it.
We also have Truckee Tuesday with Rod Hannafy. Anything can happen.
We love the news. Something to think about. Something to laugh about. We're talking news. Something to think about. Something to laugh about.
Just on the Nationals, Corey Bernardi has been tipped. He's been named as a possible One Nation mystery recruit. And it's a former Liberal senator. It was Barnaby Joyce who actually set the cat amongst the pigeons by suggesting another big name is likely to defect to One Nation. One Nation's James Ashby has also been stirring up the pot, telling reporters a new defection is imminent, and they're saying it could be Corey Bernardi. Now, Bernardi would be running as a One Nation South Australian senator. And it's interesting, isn't it? Are the rats deserting a sinking ship, or are they just going to a better-looking ship at this time?
Just a question. Let's say, theoretically, if 50 senators, whatever, or MPs did move to One Nation, would they then be able to win government?
No, you need to win government. You need to win the House of Representatives. I've told you this, but
let me reframe the question. What would one party, and let's just pretend that everything would go their way, what would actually need to happen for One Nation to become the opposition? Like, what needs to happen?
Okay, you win the majority in the House of Representatives, but you can't pass legislation, Kelsey, unless you have control of the Senate. You have to have control of the Senate to have legislation passed.
So let's just say like 50, whatever, however many people defected from the coalition and decided to go with One Nation. Like, is that the first step to them becoming the opposition?
Yeah, it is kind of. I would imagine that most of One Nation's senators, and at the moment they have bugger all in the House of Reps, would probably vote conservatively. I can't imagine them voting with the Greens on much legislation.
Interesting.
Is it? Do you think? Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see your eyes glazing over. Folks, she's nodding. I wanted to ask, what do you think is the difference between freedom of speech and censorship? And the reason I mention this, there was a comedian. I've never heard of this comedian, but you being the young millennial that you are probably have. His name is Ben Bankus, and I think he had 6 sold-out shows in Minneapolis. And on his first show, he did a whole piece on Renee Good, who was the 37-year-old woman who was shot dead by ICE agents in front of her partner, her wife. He has made fun of this and called her a dumb, crazy lesbian. And he said her last name is Good. And I think she was shot in the face. It was quite there, but the audience in the crowd were apparently loving it. And I've sent you the video of it. He seemed to focus more on her being a lesbian than anything else. I'll be honest, I don't mind dark humour, but I couldn't see anything funny about it.
Now for a moment of silence for Renee Good. Really hope that dog's okay. And her pet. It's what you don't want when you're dealing with the police, your lesbian wife. Just, drive, baby, drive! Yeah, her last name was Good. That's what I said after they shot her in the face. Renee, Good. She's dead. No, I joke. I'm not a liberal, so I don't celebrate the death of people that I didn't hate her. I didn't know her. I mean, now that I know her, I hated her. But that's the left's Charlie Kirk. They're gonna get shirts. I am Renee Good. I am a dumb, retarded lesbian. Get your shirts right now. BenBankus.com. I mean, if you watch the footage, she should have been shot 10 minutes before that. The way she was acting, driving around with cops, and they gave her a break. They didn't shoot her right away because they're like, oh, she's a dumb, crazy, retarded lesbian. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's white, so she's never committed a crime before. Right? They gave her the benefit of the doubt at the beginning, like, just get out of here, come on, and then she...
My first reaction to this was, that is diabolical. Is it funny? Like, am I just like too quote unquote woke? Like, can the audience let me know? Like, is this funny? Like, I cannot find the humor in this so close after such a contentious topic, especially in the US. I just don't know where the humor is in this.
Yeah, I actually just didn't find it funny. There's lots of dark humor, for example, with Ricky Gervais, with South Park, with Family Guy, but I couldn't see anything funny about it.
If you let crazy people just like say whatever they...
Yeah, but it's freedom of speech. But 6 of his concerts, they were sold out apparently, and 6 of them were cancelled. Now he's looking at suing the venue. But what is the difference between bad taste and free speech?
Well, it's a hard one. Like, this is a thing. We have laws that protect people from discrimination, and they often come above freedom of speech, right? Because you cannot discriminate. We, I think, as a society have to first decide if what's more important, freedom of speach or...
But who decides that?
Well, we vote for the people that decide that.
Anyway, I couldn't see anything funny about it, but let's ask our listeners what they thought. Now, tell me about this flying chair in Melbourne.
Let's watch the video.
A hard hit from behind and a hard fall straight down as a chair goes flying outside a Melbourne strip club. A shock twist, it was thrown by the victim's mate. Security guards can't help but laugh, suspecting the missile was meant for them.
So that was two men. They had gone to, I don't know, a club or something. They got kicked out of the club for being drunk and disorderly. And of course, like sensible men do, they decided to fight the security guards.
Yeah.
And one of them grabbed a chair from the neighbouring restaurant and then threw that chair, thinking he was going to hit the security guard, and then hit his friend so hard in the head,
Knocked him out.
face down on the floor. Hilarious to watch. And it's hilarious to see the security guard's reaction because they knew that the chair was meant for them. And it just made me think of, like, when have you witnessed somebody fully committing to the wrong idea? Because that's just silly.
Fully committing, like my son, your stepbrother, jumping off the Piedmont Bridge, losing $800, his phone and his clothes, and getting arrested.
Exactly. Like, he thought that this was going to be a great way to impress a lady, and it just completely backfired on him.
Have we told our listeners about I'm so proud of him, my son Jacob?
Yeah, I think we have in the past.
Yeah, Piedmont Bridge, Darling Harbour, was dared to jump off, had his pay on him, $800. So he took his wallet out, his phone, his shirt, and he's jumped off into the water. It was arrested by the water police. When he eventually made his way back up to the bridge, his wallet was gone, his phone was gone, his expensive sneakers were gone, and he had a court appearance. So there you are.
Yes. Yeah, and he asked out the cop when he got out of the water.
Oh, well, no, there's more to that because at that point there were the lockout rules up at King's Cross, and they had a current affair with a camera crew down at Darling Harbour talking about how all the drunken behaviour had moved from King's Cross down to Darling Harbour where there were no lockout laws. So he's surrounded by current affair. There's a camera, there's a boom microphone, and the arresting female police officer that dragged him out of the water, he asked for her phone number.
Yes. Oh, so proud.
I'm so seriously proud of him.
Good boy.
The dumbest thing you've ever done, let us know. 0291289311 or send us an email. And if you've got photographic proof, you get extra points.
Yeah.
You got an email from Naomi.
And this is in response to our, I guess, request for alternative Australia Days.
Yeah. I agree it needs to be changed, but when Naomi says, an alternative date for Australia Day could be July 30. In 1915, it was the day for a special wartime fundraising day created to support Australian soldiers during World War.
Oh, that's nice. I never knew that.
I didn't know that either, but I don't think it's Australia Day.
Really?
Yeah. But thank you, Naomi.
We got a message from Josh and he wanted us to watch this clip.
Okay.
You ready?
Homicide Squad detectives have spent a second day at the Mosman Park home where parents killed their two autistic children and then took their own lives. Friends revealing the family's NDIS funding had recently been cut and they were struggling to cope with new details tonight about a second letter found inside.
They're described as two beautiful boys who couldn't have asked for more loving and devoted parents. But May and Jared Clune were struggling to look after 14-year-old Otis and 16-year-old Leon. Both boys lived with severe autism. One was non-verbal. Friends say the couple was at breaking point. Yesterday, killing both their sons, then taking their own lives.
If they had a proper support system in place for them, this wouldn't happen. So there's something wrong with our support system.
How sad
That is the most tragic story I've ever heard. So you've got a couple raising two autistic boys, one of them non-verbal. You just heard that. They're struggling to cope. They're at breaking point. The NDIS has cut help for one of the boys, and their only option was to take the boys' lives and then their own. That is the most tragic story I've ever heard.
I know, it's incredibly sad. And I know a lot of people that work in the NDIS, and I think a lot of people agree that the way that funding has been dealt with since the inception of the NDIS, it hasn't been handled well. Lots of people are rorting the system, absolutely. But the consequences for that is things like this, the people that actually need help, that the whole reason why the NDIS was set up in the first place, because governments are now trying to roll back the NDIS and to stop corruption, which should be happening, these things are happening as well, because it's easy to just slash, to take funding back. But what are the consequences of that? If you take funding back from everyone, then people like these suffer. So it's incredibly sad. Something needs to happen there.
It is. That is such a sad story. Golly.
Just imagine being that's your breaking point.
I know.
That is your breaking point.
I know.
That is...
Look, the NDIS is a very, very good idea, but so many people do rort it. And maybe it's like people cheating Centrelink. Graham Wynn's often told us they haven't got the staff to police all the rorting. Gee whiz, you hear of some people getting NDIS funding that don't deserve it, and you got that family there at breaking point who definitely needed help and they didn't get it. And look at the consequences. Jesus.
I know. It's there was a story recently about a provider scamming like millions of dollars out of the NDIS. And obviously, they're going through the process now, but it just makes you sick, right? It just makes you sick in the stomach, the people that are rorting the system when there are families out there at their absolute breaking point. It's atrocious.
It is atrocious. If you've got a story that we need to know about, please let us know. Boy, oh boy, what a terrible, terrible story.
Well, on a lighter note, Luke, Kevin sent us a video to watch, and this is for all those born in 1976.
All right.
Hey, dude, if you were born in 76, this one's for you.
Yep, you're hitting 50 this year. So yeah, let's take a trip down memory lane. You know, what later became Gaga Ball was just a safer version of dodgeball. But man, only we know how brutal it felt when that ball smacked you in the face.
You probably remember the era when schools made us learn cursive.
Honestly, it looked like some alien language. A slice of toast with cinnamon and sugar? That was breakfast. Simple, but man, do you remember that taste? We were real pioneers, bruh. Reading paper maps and planning trips with them.
I remember paper maps.
No Google Maps back then. And parents? Forget asking what we wanted to eat or didn't want.
If we didn't eat, we went hungry.
No choices, no complaints.
No cell phones, no iPads. We'd just sit in the car, staring out the window, asking over and over, are we there yet?
So yeah, we weren't babies, we figured things out ourselves. Life literally forged us into who we are.
You'd never make it.
That's the 76 crew, tough as nails. So tell me, do you miss those days?
Interesting, told through the eyes of people born in 1976. I lived 1976, and they're right, things did change rapidly. Your mum did year 12 in 79. But, yeah, that's the way it was. No electric bikes then. You used leg power or Shank's pony. Do you know what Shank's pony is?
Yeah, that's just walking.
Good girl.
That's just walking.
Interesting.
Mum made me walk up the hill every day after school.
Yeah, well, mum did the same thing. Your mum had a secret had a deal with let the phone ring 3 times and hang up so you didn't have to pay for it. See how I'm going and I might come down and pick you up. Your granny never turned up. Your mum walked up the hill with her port in one hand, no backpacks then, a port in one hand and her trumpet in the other.
Sounds about right. Now, we've got a message here from a listener, Martin. He said, I've been sick for a long time, but due to prolonged failed treatments due to misdiagnosis, pushing my already unstable body trying to get around to outpatient appointments across multiple specialists over the years, my body is now shutting down and bedridden. Have been for a while. They promise quality of life. I'm not asking to be fixed. How do they expect someone so sick, bedridden, knowing how bad my health already is, to keep going? It's not possible anymore. We're thinking of you, Martin. That's a terrible position to be in.
Martin, sorry to hear you going through that. We are thinking of you, and all our podcast family are giving you a big hug right now.
Absolutely. All right, Luke, we've got a voicemail here. Let's have a listen.
Yeah, it's Dean from your Minor. How's all going? Just talking about ghost stories. I did the Rocks Ghost Walk a few years back, and I went down a set of stairs, and I was the last in the line down underneath this building, and it was a big opening where they found bones. When we were leaving the return out, there's nothing on either side of this steel staircase. And as I'm walking up the stairs, as the last one in the line, there's no one behind me who left the room. I had something grab me on the back of the neck and pull me back down towards the bottom of the pit, the hole we're in. It scared the bejesus out of me, and I wasn't a believer before then. And I'm I strongly am now.
See, something like that needs to happen to me to believe in ghosts.
Well, why don't we make it happen to you? Go and spend the night at the quarantine station at Manly. I dare you.
And also, how do you know that they didn't have someone there, like, in the, wearing black in the shadows, like, setting that stuff up?
Yeah. No, I'm still going, Coming up on the Bonafide podcast, some important and interesting employment news from Graham Wynn.
Luke's on the desk, pushing long bloody knobs. Blames the glitch bitch instead of doing his job. Kels rolls her eyes, says, mate, just shut up. She runs this whole circus while he drinks from his cup. We're Bonafide and busted, but you legends stick around. Luke's chilly meltdowns and his bulletproof head sound. Rod's yelling about green reflectors, Bill's digging up the dead. And thank fuck for this mad mob who listen instead. And then Granny Sue calls in, laughing down the line, gives Luke a serve and still sounds fine. She's sharper than a logbook, tougher than the crew. If patience had a patron saint, it's Granny Bloody Sue. We're Bonafide and busted, but you legends never bail. From rest stop results, cold stone to mobiles, wigged out tail. We've built this mob together, from the cab to the pub. So here's a song of thanks, you patient bastards, cheers for the love.
Time to talk employment issues with our employment expert, Graham Wynn. First time for the year. Uncle Grey, welcome back to Bonafide.
Welcome back and good to be here again, Luke.
Look, there's a couple of things that we need to talk about because we're heading into a really interesting year, 2026. A lot of uncertainty. Most young Australians aged between 18 and 30 are more than ever reluctant to leave the job they're in, even though they're unhappy in that job. Why? Because there is uncertainty out there and they've got debts, enormous debts, and they'd rather the devil they know than the devil they maybe don't. Interesting stuff, Graham.
That is interesting because that's a real shift from the last sort of 12 months, 18 months, where people would changing jobs at a drop of a hat, basically. If they weren't happy, they'd just find another job. And so it's a real shift that in that age group who, as we know from previous conversations, they would change jobs quickly. Now they're sitting back and saying, I need to wait. There's so much unrest, and we'll talk worldwide as well, but also in Australia, the political thing, that again, there is so much unrest. People don't know what's going to happen next week or next month or even next year. So people are just sitting back and saying, I need to stay put. Because who knows what's going to happen next? I need to just stay where I am. It may not be perfect. There may be better options out there, but I can't afford just to jump ship now because nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow.
There's also, I know, it's a shame. We don't know what's going to happen with interest rates this year. They've been left on hold, but the Reserve Bank may well put them up 0.25% next time they meet if we haven't got a handle on inflation. And if you're a young Australian that's in a lot of debt, it may not be a mortgage, it may be a credit card. But if you're in a job, and what makes me sad, Graham, is that so many young Australians are in jobs that they say they don't like.
Yeah, and I would think if you ask most people over the years, most people don't like the jobs they do. I would say it's a majority across the years, but a lot of people, it's acceptable, they tolerate it. They may not like it, but it's okay. And I think people are saying now that even though we don't like it, we're not going to change. Whereas, I say, 2 or 3 years ago, if they didn't like it, they would have changed. They've just changed their mindset now to say, this is not perfect, but at least it's a job. It's stability. I've got money coming in every week. So they're staying put for those reasons rather than we like the job. They're staying put purely now because it is a job and it's stability and money.
So what advice have you got for an 18 to 30-year-old that's in a job they hate and they're scared stiff of losing, or at least trying to venture out and start a new career or similar job but somewhere else?
Look, the real issue is that even if you stay put where you are, there's still no guarantees that that company or that job will be there in 6 months' time. So just because you've got a job doesn't mean it will be there in 6 months' time. So sometimes taking a risk is not a bad thing. I think what you need to do, though, if you're looking elsewhere, don't leave the current job you're in first. And in the past, a lot of people do that. They leave a job and then go and find another one. Stay where you are until you do get your next job. Hang on until you get the new job. That at least buys you time, and you can really consider it more carefully if you're currently working. If you're not working, you take the first thing that comes along quite often. So stay put, look around. But also when you do get to interviews or job vacancies that you're looking at, do some research. Research the company. Look at reviews of the company. Try and find out as much as you can about them. Does this seem a good place to work? Does it seem stable? There is so much information on the internet about every single company you can find. You don't have to go to a library like we had to in my days and use a microfiche to find information. It's on the internet. So if you're looking for jobs and looking at companies, Google them. Learn as much as you can about them, and you'll get a really good feel. Is this a good place to work? Does it seem stable? And you can get that information up front yourself, but certainly stay where you are until you get another job.
Graham, this next question for you is purely my observation and feedback I read on the internet and emails that are sent to us. Walking around my local shopping centre just yesterday, I saw 3 stores advertising for employees. One was at Kmart, one was at, believe it or not, a donut place, and another one was another franchise, and it was at a food hall. All 3 signs said, we are hiring, not apply within, you had to apply online. Now, so you got Kmart, which is a huge organisation. You got the donut place, which is a franchise. It's not a restaurant. The fast food place and the food hall, also a large franchise. What hope have you got if you want to sell yourself, which includes your personality, if you're applying online with hundreds or possibly thousands of other people also applying online?
Look, it's really difficult that, because if you think back to a few years ago again, you'd walk around shopping centres and we're now hiring, come in and
sell
talk
yourself.
To it. Absolutely right. You'd walk around with a dozen resumes in your hand, and you'd walk into these shops or these cafes, and you'd give them your resume and you'd talk to a manager and sell yourself rather than your bit of paper resume. That's all gone now. It's all gone completely. And there's a number of reasons for it, but generally speaking, using someone like Kmart as an example, because their HR is based in Sydney or wherever they're based, going into a store, that person who you want to meet is not a decision maker and has got better things to do than talk to every person who walks in. So they make you go online. But also big organizations have these questionnaires, these profiles when you go to apply online. They want you to fill in all the information about yourself, not just your work history, but other stuff about you. And they make you go through these big, long questionnaires online. And it's like a bit of a test they give you as well to see if you're worth applying for that job. You can't do that face to face. So they make you do online testing quite often as well, which is why they do it. The small outlets, they normally run on pretty bare staff. And again, I think their idea is we're a franchise or a small part of a bigger organization. We don't have time to talk to and sit down with everybody because, again, we're busy, but also we don't make the decision quite often. Somebody else does. So therefore, they make you go online.
Yeah, it is difficult if part of selling you is a face-to-face so that the manager or the person doing the hiring can see the person they're hiring. It tells me that there aren't managers in these stores that are either allowed to hire or head office and the people in charge of these large franchises or corporations don't want their managers to hire.
And you're quite correct on both those things. The people running it probably don't have the experience to do recruiting, and also the head offices want to do that themselves. And I think there's a fear factor. If we make these decisions, hopefully we check these people out properly, do full due diligence, etc., to make sure that we're not opening ourselves up to any liability or risks or anything at all. So therefore, they take these things on themselves.
Yeah. Does a future employer have the right to search your history, and that includes your social media activity?
Absolutely, yes. Completely. If you've got your social media set as public, anyone can look at it, and every recruiter does, and most employers do as well. So yeah, if you've got your social profile set as public, we can all look at it, and we all do. If you don't want us to, make it private, then we can't. But if you leave it on public, then anyone can look at it, and every recruiter and every employer does. So if you are making your social profiles public, be careful what's on there sometimes, because employers and recruiters can make a decision based on what they see on your Facebook pages.
And they don't have to give you an explanation.
Correct. So if you send your resume into a recruiter or an employer, they Google your name, they are on Facebook, or don't like that, they just throw your resume away. So they don't even speak to you. So you don't even know you weren't successful. You just didn't even get an interview. They saw your Facebook, didn't like it, boom, moved on.
Graham, another dilemma, and I have found this, and I know that our producer Kelsey has experienced this. When you know you're good at your job, you know you get results, you reach your KPIs, you've done the HR compliance courses and you get all that, but you are surrounded by idiots. And it's very, very difficult to work in a workplace when the person in charge of you is a complete imbecile. What's your advice? What's your advice to somebody? I mean, it's the old saying, isn't it? How do they expect me to soar like an eagle when they surround me with turkeys? What do you do when your boss is incompetent?
Look, it's a really, really difficult one, and there's no easy answer to that one. I've experienced myself when I worked for other companies. I mean, me personally, that's probably why I started my own business, because I was tired of working with idiots. So I thought, bugger it, I'll do it myself. I can do better. So I'll start my own business, and that's probably why I did it in the first place. But that's not an easy option for a lot of people to take. It's a big risk, that. But I think sometimes you've just got to. It is what it is, and if eventually you see you're going to get nowhere, then you have to look elsewhere, because quite often those people who are idiots have been put in those places because they know somebody quite often, or friends of, or whatever. Or if you look at, for instance, councils and governments, if you're no good at your job, they just move you to a different department. They don't get rid of you. They just shift you to a different department. So basically, some people in councils and governments get promotion through stealth, purely because they're no good at one job, and get promotion because we have to move you but can't sack you. So they just move people around. So when you experience that kind of thing, eventually you've just got to one day accept, okay, I'm not going to get anywhere at all with this. I need to look around for something different.
But if it's the job that you love and a job you're really good at, it's a really, really... It's happened to me at radio stations where the bloke who was in charge of my career was an imbecile.
Look, I took a risk many, many years ago. My boss was a real problem. So I went to his bosses and said, look, this is the situation. He's done this, he's doing that. And they basically said, look, if we take it up with him, one of you has to go. You can't both stay if you've raised this. And I said, I'm aware of that. And more often than not, it's me because I'm less than him, ends up losing their job. And that's exactly what happened. But I had to make a stand and say, this is what's going on here. And you take a risk sometimes, but that's very hard to do. That's very hard to do. But seriously, if it's not going to change and you can see it's not going to change, as much as you might love that job, you do need to think about, okay, where do I go next?
And document everything. That's the one thing I learned dealing with a terrible boss. Document everything that happens, date, timestamps, and a brief description of what was done. And that is the best ammunition you can have. So that's my number one tip.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
And she's only been in the workplace for a blink of an eye compared to you and me, but she's learnt it.
She document everything. And if people are sending text messages, whatever, screenshot them so you've got them saved in case they get deleted later on. Yeah, so copy everything. If you think there's real issues, make sure you copy everything. As Kelsey said, date stamp everything. If it's emails, the date will be on the emails. If you're copying screenshots, that should be date stamped as well. But just have backups and copies of everything.
My dad had a saying, and it was a very good saying. He said, son, It's a very, very long day when you're convinced you're right and the boss is wrong.
Very true that. Very true that. But like I say, sometimes people are there and they're not going to be moved. The management won't move them. They're stuck there. You realise that. You stay there as long as you can, but as much as you love it, if things aren't going to change, then you have to move on, unfortunately. And I know somebody who recently loves their job completely, wakes up in the morning, bouncing to go to work, but the management are screwed. So eventually they've said, okay, I need to look for something else. As much as I love my job, and I do love it, I need to look for something else because management are screwed.
Yeah. So keep your cards close to your chest, or the other saying is keep your powder dry, but actively search, not using your work email.
Never do that.
Never do that. And just look. Graham, what are the...
Wait. I was going to ask you, Luke, what's the worst thing a boss has ever done to you? But then I remembered something that when you just mentioned don't send it from your work email, I think you'll both laugh at this. I have a friend whose husband was friends with this guy at work, and he was fired recently because he was looking at porn on his work laptop and was caught doing it. And this person is also on a working visa, so they only have like 3 months to find another sponsored job or they're out. And yeah, I mean, they felt really bad for this person, but also like you are the maker. I think that's got to be the stupidest thing you could possibly do. Everybody knows your work computer is for work things only, and past that point, like, don't bring it to work. And apparently he was looking at this stuff whilst on the clock. So they were able to match up the timestamps to when he was at work and when he was looking at this material. And yeah, he was let go. So a stark reminder to people out there.
People are using work laptops. Companies can access what you're Googling and what you're searching through. They can do that.
Everything.
Yeah.
And IT teams look at the team's messages as well. They will go through your messages.
I'll give you an example. Many years ago, do you remember Watergate and President Nixon, who was eventually impeached? And it was all brought about by two journalists that worked for the Washington Post, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. And the bloke that was tipping them off and giving them, pointing them in the right direction was codenamed Deep Throat. And then a number of years ago, I'm tipping about 16 years ago, the bloke who was Deep Throat died, and they published and broadcast who it was. And so I heard this, and on my work computer, I typed in who was Deep Throat. 5 minutes later, I was called down to the manager's office with I was asked questions, and when I explained it, of course, everything was all right. But that's what happened.
Yeah.
Be very,
I've
very
just come
careful.
back from a trip to Hawaii, and I'm going back again in May to Vegas, another holiday and what have you. And we've been told that going across there, the American, when you get to security, they can take your phone off you and check your last 5 years' social histories and history to make sure you haven't said something that's dodgy. So even they're going to check things on you. So you've got to be so careful what you do on your social media, so careful what you do on your work computers, because whether you like it or not, somebody is watching.
Graham, we've entered the era of non-disclosure agreements, NDAs. Are you absolutely compelled to sign one if it's part of the terms and conditions of joining a company or a business?
Look, if it's part of your terms and conditions, then yes, absolutely. That's part of the terms and conditions. That's part of your agreement, part of your contract. You need to sign it, yes. There's such a grey area, the NDAs, though. The wording of it, you need to be very careful what's in it. But yeah, NDAs, I'm not a lover of them. But yeah, I've actually had some of my clients who've made people, before they start, actually sign an NDA. And they've even made them sign an NDA before they get to interview stage. Because at the interview stage, they're going to learn things about the organisation. So they had to make them sign an NDA before they even get to an interview stage. And most candidates are happy to do it. I've only had one, I think, who refused to do it. But most candidates are happy to do it because they want that job. So, yeah.
So if you do leave that job and you've signed an NDA and part of it is you don't share information about that company with a company that you go to, and that is after you've had a no-compete clause sorted out, right? If you do break an NDA, what are the consequences?
Look, it depends on what level you've broken it at, but there's certainly legal repercussions about it. Definitely, it can be treated as a criminal offence, but it depends on what level you've gone to, what you've fully disclosed. So it really does change a little bit, depending on what you've done. I mean, the not being able to work for a competitor after you leave somewhere, that's, again, such a difficult one, because we had a person working for us many, many years ago who left our employment following week, went and actually turned up an appointment she'd set when she was working for me. So she went to a competitor and turned up at that appointment to try and sell her new recruitment agency to that person. And we had this non-complete cause kind of thing. And we actually lost that case because basically it was treated as the non-compete meant we were also restricting her chance to earn income. So the non-complete, if you're going to enforce it, you've actually got to have a financial arrangement as well. To say, okay, non-compete for 12 months, but we will therefore give you 20 grand as a compensation for reducing your potential income. And a lot of non-complete courses don't have that in. So if you have a non-complete, there has to be some form of financial arrangement as well. I think that years ago, there was one of the big super stores, one of the department stores, a person left and was told you can't go and work for a competitor for 12 months, and they gave him like $10 million to not go and be a CEO for a competitor for 12 months. So there has to be some kind of arrangement. Otherwise, it gets classed as we're stopping that person earning income, and therefore we lost that case,
Because I left one radio station to go and work at another, and this is how stupid and naive I was when I signed my original agreement with the first station. There was a non-compete of 3 months. And I had to leave this station, and I was offered a great job at another station, a network. And luckily for me, the CEO understood that for 3 months I couldn't live without a wage. And so he made it 4 weeks, he made it 1 month, and that was my holidays anyway. So, I was very, very lucky. Graham, what are some of the telltale signs that you can pick up on that gives you an idea that maybe you are about to be pushed out?
Communication's quite a big one normally. If suddenly people in management, etc., stop communicating with you, cut you out of meetings, you're not being copied on emails, some of your workload may be taken away from you or not being given to you, that generally is your first sign there are problems here. Communication is normally number one because they start cutting you out. That's the number one thing that, okay, things aren't good here. Well, and it's, I suppose, like that in relationships. If your partner stops talking to you, there's a problem. So it's the same in the workplace. If communication drops down, generally there's something not right here. So that's your first telltale sign, is communication that reduces dramatically. Quite often also, if you say, I've got ideas, suggestions, and they don't get looked at as quickly as they used to get looked at, that's another sign that things are not going well because they're not taking your ideas on board as much as they used to. But generally speaking, communication is the number one where you realize, okay, things have changed, then therefore things aren't right. So if the communication drops, that's your first red flag.
We've heard the term performance management. What is performance management, and how can you tell if you're being performance managed, or does management have to tell you are?
Well, no, they don't really have to tell you because generally speaking, every job has some form of KPIs and responsibilities. But being performance management means that you're actually checking and watching, observing your key performance indicators much more closely than they used to. And so they'll actually try to manage you out of the business by saying, recently you haven't been doing this, or you haven't achieved this target, or you haven't achieved that target. That's how they manage you out of the business, by being much more focused on what those key performance indicators are and how you're going against them. So that's what they tend to do. So once you see them starting to monitor more closely your KPIs, that also is generally another sign, okay, things aren't good here.
There was a well-publicised case, and you remember this, Graham, I think we may have discussed it a few years ago, where there was an employee that worked for a fairly large corporation, and the day before their long service was about to kick in, was performance managed and terminated the day before the 10 years rolled around.
Look, unfortunately, there are companies who don't act in an ethical way, That's what they do. And I remember also, I'm not sure if you remember, it still exists, these 12-month traineeships that people take on and get paid like $7 an hour to do these traineeships with companies. Okay. And then at the end of that 12-month traineeship, oh, sorry, that isn't a job for you, unfortunately, and you're back on the scrap heap. But then a week later, that same company puts another 12-month traineeship on at $7 an hour. That goes on and goes on. There are some very unethical employers around. They get away with it because no one monitors these things closely enough, particularly sort of small to medium business. They don't get monitored. But it's just unfortunate. There are some very, very unethical employers, and they will always look for loopholes. Or is there a way to cut costs? Is there a way to not have to pay something out? If there's a way to do it, they'll find it.
Last question from me. I'm sure the millennial has one, but the last question for me, is AI going to take millions of jobs, or is it going to create jobs? Are you concerned about AI taking over the workplace?
I'm not overly concerned about it because I don't think it will be as big as people think. Yes, it will certainly change things, but I'm not sure it's going to suddenly make half the country unemployed. I really don't see it being that level. If we use it properly, it should be able to assist people with their jobs. Yes, it will replace some jobs, but it will create other jobs. So yeah, AI will remove some people and things that are basic mundane work, AI can replace that. But so AI though will create more work by the fact that we're using AI, it'll create far more work because it can do more. And so therefore, if we're saying, okay, AI can remove an accountant, get rid of an accountant, for instance, because AI can do all your accounts for you, somebody still needs to be checking those reports that come out, analysing the data that comes out. So it won't just simply, I've done your accounts off to the tax office. Somebody will still have to go through that and analyse that. So it might change it from being an accountant to more of a data analyst. So we'll get rid of some jobs, but we'll create other jobs. I'm not overly concerned about the impact to AI because, as I say, yes, it will get rid of some jobs, but it will create other jobs. My concern with AI, realistically, though, is that people's reliance on it is becoming too great. They're assuming AI is this all wonderful, it never makes a mistake, it can't get things wrong. And it still is in its infancy and it's still learning and we're still building this. And the examples I'll use are when I get resumes from people who are using AI to do their resumes, the resume comes through and says, this is where you insert your job title. This is where you insert your name. They don't check it. So we get that kind of resume through. So even though AI may be able to write a resume, you still need to look at it. And that's why, as I'm saying, AI may help things, but you still need people to verify, check the data, analyze the data to make sure it's right. So when you're doing your resumes with AI, don't just let AI do it for you. You still need to check it yourself.
Yes, because recently we've heard that a lot of employers are receiving resumes from people who have done it through AI, and even in our schools and universities, students cheating on exams and school projects using AI. And there are AI app busters that they use, but the AI is on top of them now, and now there's an AI buster.
Correct, and that will go on. I mean, it's like people who do hacking and fraud. If they're once you've caught them the way they do it, they've already found another way of doing it. So basically they find one way and then they're looking for another way because they know you'll find a solution to the first way. AI will be the same. But yeah, I think people just need to be careful. It's a tool to help you. It's not to do it for you. That's the way you need. It's like a calculator. Even though you use a calculator, don't assume it's right. You still need to key the right numbers in.
Yeah. Graham, what jobs, in your opinion, right now at the beginning of 2026 are safe from being AI replaced?
Trades are still safe, and there's a huge shortage still of tradespeople. There's still a real demand for tradespeople. Anything in the health sector, the aged care sector, education sector, they're still pretty safe, those things as well. And even retail, hospitality, they're all quite safe. So anything also where you've got people interaction or you need to do things with your hands physically, those jobs are still pretty safe because AI can't take those jobs yet. AI at this stage can't bricklaying, it can't do that yet. There's tools to help you with it, but AI, in my job itself, I talk to people face to face. AI can't do that. So there are certain jobs where you've got people interaction or physical ones, they're still quite safe. There are tools that can help us, but the actual job itself is still safe. So yeah, aged care, healthcare, trades or anything retail, hospitality or people interaction, those jobs are still fairly safe.
Graham Wynn from Superior People Recruitment. You're the man. Thank you so much.
Good to be back. Thanks, Luke.
Well, we've covered this quite extensively here on the podcast, and you're maybe sick of hearing about it. I don't know. I guess it depends on what side of the political fence you're on. If you are on the ALP side of things, you would be delighting in what's turned out to be a collapse of the coalition. They are clearly trying to rebuild and show a united front to Conservative voters, but the process is still going on. And then we hear that a Liberal National Party MP, Colin Boyce, is going to lead a spill against the Nationals leader David Littleproud and challenge him for the top job. So how did we get to this? The second time in less than 2 months. Somebody who's been quite vocal on all of this and a major player in what's going on is Senator Matt Canavan. And he joins us on the Bonafide podcast right now. Senator, welcome.
Good to be with you, Luke. How are you?
I'm okay. I guess the question is, how are you, your National Party colleagues, your Conservative colleagues, and how did we get to what appears to be a bit of a mess?
Oh, look, the prime reason for the split was the disagreement on these hate speech laws. The Nationals Party fought to protect free speech. I don't think we should have hate crimes defined in this country to include things like psychological harm, economic harm, are all included in this bill. This law now. So we oppose that. We got some changes made to it which were positive, but they weren't enough in our view to protect the fundamental rights of Australians. So we opposed it. And the Liberal Party had a different view, and because of that dispute, the Liberal leader decided that anyone that didn't vote for those laws couldn't be in her shadow ministry, and so that meant all of the Nationals Party members, and if there are no National Party members in the shadow ministry, there's no coalition. So that's how we got here. From my own perspective, I don't see why we can't patch these disagreements up. It was one disagreement on one bill. That is in the rearview mirror now. We're past that. The law's not coming back anytime soon. We do agree on a whole bunch of other things, particularly how badly this government is managing the economy, how they're destroying our energy competitiveness, how they've let in an open borders policy post-COVID, which is crushing the housing dreams of young Australians and putting massive strain on our infrastructure like hospitals and roads, etc. So those are sort of things we've got to get back to fighting for. I'm happy to do that as part of the Nationals Party alone. If we have to, I will do that. But it would be better to be back with our Liberal brothers and sisters. So I'm going back to Canberra next week and we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens and we'll be leaning forward and watching with great interest because, and you know this, to have a good government, you need a good opposition, and we haven't got one at the moment. And I understand that you and your colleagues will be trying to unite and show some solidarity and then give voters an alternative. And I guess this is why Conservative voters seem to be flocking towards Pauline Hanson and One Nation at the moment. And it would appear at this point that Barnaby Joyce backed the right horse. But One Nation and Pauline Hanson can't govern. They can't form government unless they have seats in the House of Representatives. So what do you make of One Nation and Barnaby Joyce? When he decided that he was going to join One Nation, I know that David Littleproud was very disappointed. He said so on this podcast, but what did you make of it?
Oh, look, I was hugely disappointed. I'm good mates with Barnaby, and I think he deserted his mates by going across to One Nation. I feel very humbled and privileged to be representative of Queensland as their senator, and I owe that. I'm only here in that position because of the support of thousands of Liberal and National Party members in Queensland. So I'll always stand beside them. I'm loyal to them, and I'm honoured to fight with them. So I thought it was a betrayal from Barnaby. Look, this is a marathon, not a sprint, so we'll see what happens. The big thing we need to change the country is a team. You can't do it on your own. Doesn't matter, who you are, whether you're Pauline Hanson or Barnaby Joyce. When you go down there as a parliamentarian, you've only got one vote. And to get anything changed in this country, we need 76. such people in the House of Representatives to have a majority to form government, and hopefully somewhere close to or eventually getting to a majority in the Senate to get laws changed, which is 39 senators. So One Nation are obviously a long way from that. And more to the point, Pauline hasn't shown exactly a great ability to work with other people. Even when her party is small in number, she can't work with just a few people. How is it going to work if they ever got to the sort of size to form government, as Pauline likes to say? So that's why I'm fighting within our team to do that. Now, there's no doubt that we've gotten things wrong, that many of our supporters have been frustrated, disappointed in us. We are recognising that. I do think we've turned a corner last year when we posed this madness of net zero, which is pushing up energy prices, lowering the standard of living of all Australians. And so we've just got to get back to fighting on things like that. And that's what I'll be taking up the fight on next week in Canberra at question time, through my ability to do things in the Senate. I'll just be focused on those things that are real for the Australian people. And if we get back to focusing on those, this government is so bad and our country is going so far backwards so fast. I do believe we will win the next election.
Let me just take you back to that fateful day in the Senate where 3 National Party representatives didn't abstain on the vote on the hate speech legislation. They crossed the floor and voted with the Greens. And yet some prominent Liberals in the Senate, including Michaela Cash and the Deputy Leader, Ted O'Brien, they abstained. Why didn't your 3 National Party senators abstain and not vote? Why did they cross the floor and vote with the Greens?
Well, we think that your right to free speech, your right to freely associate with who you see fit is more important than our positions, our jobs, more important than the coalition. Fundamental. This is why we get into politics, to fight and defend these things. And if it costs me my political career, it's already cost some of my colleagues their shadow ministerial portfolio positions. We did that knowing exactly what the consequences potentially were, but we were still happy to fight for you. And I believe the Australian people are crying out for this, for some politicians that put their interest before the self-interest of politicians. And that's exactly what my colleagues did last week in Canberra. And that's why I'm very proud of them. Now, I'll just correct one thing. The Greens didn't vote. We didn't vote with the Greens. The Greens voted with us. We were the ones who moved amendments to the bill to improve it. And so we were removing those terms like psychological and economic harm I mentioned earlier, restraining it to physical harm. And the sad thing about the vote last week was that because we had the Greens support, and whatever you think of the Greens, we ultimately, as I say, need 39 to change the country. Yep. So I'll work with any other party in the Senate to get to that 39 if that means making our country better. I don't care who you are. And so we got the Green support. If we'd had the Liberals, if the Liberals had supported us, that bill would have been amended. That would have got us over the 39 senators required. The bill would have been made better. And then the Labor Party would have been put in the position to either support our amendments effectively through an amended bill or have to vote against their own legislation. So it's a great shame we didn't take up that opportunity. As you say, many Liberal senators abstained from the final vote, which was a little strange. Maybe that does reflect the fact that they had problems with the bill, which then raises the question, why didn't they join us? Why didn't they join us to make this bill better and also put the Labor Party in a very difficult position on their own legislation?
Okay, I'll tell you how I see it, and please jump all over me if you think or when you think I'm wrong, but I've got a funny feeling that this was a National Party strategy to help get rid of Susan Lee, because you cannot or you do not believe that with Susan Lee as leader of the Liberals, the coalition can gain support from the electorate. And David, let me just tell you this. David Littleproud said on my podcast last year, we were talking about Andrew Hastie, and he said, and he was careful with his words, but he said, look, I think Andrew Hastie would be a great leader. A fortnight later, I pushed him on it a little bit further, and he was even more careful because he said, I don't want to get myself in hot water, his words. And he said, I'm not endorsing him as leader of the Liberal Party. I just said I think he'd be a good leader. But I got the distinct impression that he thought, and I'm staying with Andrew Hastie because that's the name that came up during our chat, I think it was a strategy to put pressure on the Libs at removing Susan Lee.
Well, I fundamentally reject that. That certainly wasn't discussed in our room, Luke. I can only speak for myself, but it's definitely not my motivations on these things.
So it was rushed.
And can I say, it was only the Nationals Party, and to give Greens their due as well, we were some of the only senators who moved substantive amendments. One Nation, for all the talk of One Nation, did not move a single substantive amendment to the bill. And so One Nation are very good at making statements and making a bit of noise, but in a hard grind of trying to get things done in Canberra, which is, it's not enough just to have a media release. It's not enough just to perform well on TV. You've got to do the work as a parliamentarian, get across the legislation, talk to your colleagues about doing things better, get to a coalition that can make things better. We did make some changes to the bill. The government accepted. They put a couple of notes in the bill to restrict it somewhat. They changed the second reading speech because of the concerns the Nationals Party made, but it wasn't enough for us. But that's what we did to make positive change, and that's why I'm very proud of the Nationals Party and the role we play in the parliament.
Does Colin Boyce have a hope of toppling David Littleproud?
Look, I don't think so. Colin, I'm good mates with Colin, and what you see is what you get with Colin. So he's saying in public that why he's doing this is to try and restore the coalition. His view is he doesn't think the coalition can be restored under David Littleproud. So that's why he's making this move. I think he's genuine in those motivations, but I don't think it's something that's shared by our colleagues because, as I say, proud with how the National Party acted last week. I'm proud of how our leader, David Littleproud, performed. That's why I won't be supporting the spill motion, and I don't think a majority of my colleagues will either.
Will any of your colleagues support the spill?
I don't know.
You do, Senator. You've got an idea.
Well, I haven't called every other Nationals member of the party room and asked them what they're going to do.
You haven't?
And even if I did, no, I haven't. I've got more important things. I've got more important. Well,
this is about the leadership of your party. Come on, Senator.
But I don't think it's going to get up. Mate.
You've worked the phones. You've worked the phones.
No, well, I'm sorry, Luke. I haven't. I'm focused. What I'm doing this week is focusing on constituents. We're getting ready for the parliamentary sitting week. I'm not going to waste my time on stuff that I don't think is that important. Can I also say, the other thing here is, while every member of the Nationals Party has this right to do this, it's pretty unusual, and I don't think it's got much chance of getting up. So I'm very confident in what's going to happen. I've called David and let him know I support him and won't be supporting the motion, but it's not for me to ask other people. Keep in mind that the one rule in politics too, Luke, is even if I did call everyone up and ask where they're going to vote, the rule is you can only trust the people who say they're not going to vote for you. The ones that say they are going to, you can't count on that.
Yeah. I often think the same with polls. When someone rings you and says, we're doing a poll, who are you going to vote for, or whatever the question is? And often people They do the same with radio surveys too, Senator. Let me just tell you this: they'll tick the box that they think is a cool box, and not really tick the box of the station they're listening to. But anyway, I think often people say what they think people want to hear. But the polling at the moment has Pauline Hanson ahead of Susan Lee as preferred Prime Minister. But Pauline Hanson cannot be Prime Minister from the Senate. You've got to be in the House of Reps. Now, constitutionally she can, but...
Can I just say that's not true? You can be Prime Minister from the Senate.
No, well, John Gorton was, but 1968, John Gorton was voted leader from the Senate, but then there was a by-election and he went downstairs to the A grade.
But he could have stayed in the Senate. He could have.
You can't
There's
run
nothing
it.
legal
You can't run
against
it. I just said that.
Well,
I just said
in a practical sense,
I just said constitutionally you can.
Yeah, you can.
But you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, I don't know. I mean, we're in a strange time, aren't we? So I'm not going to rule anything ever out. But look, the reason you can is because we're based on the English parliamentary system, and England, long time ago, had many prime ministers from the upper house, from the House of Lords.
Yeah, but to run the country and to run the parliament, I think practically you've got to be in the House of Reps. And so there you are. But look, constitutionally, you can. I don't think it's possible. So just explain to me what party room solidarity is. Susan Lee says that your three senators that voted with the Greens, or the Greens voted with you, but that fateful day in the Senate, those senators broke party room solidarity. Now, I've tried to come to the bottom of all of this, and David Littleproud says that it was quite clear to the Libs how the Nationals were going to vote. And let me ask you this. Was it clear to Susan Lee that if those three senators' resignations were accepted, that the rest of the National Party coalition would also walk, the other eight would walk?
Well, I can't answer.
Did she know that?
Because
in your opinion,
I didn't. Well, what my understanding is that David sent Susan a letter.
Yes.
In the morning of the day she did sack those ministers, indicating that if those ministers were sacked, all Nationals Party ministers
so
would
she knew that,
not be serving. And so I think she did. I can't speak for Susan's state of mind or whether she saw that letter or what happened, but that's my understanding of what happened. In terms of just quickly though, slightly correct you. What Susan Lee has been saying is that she is sticking by the principle of shadow cabinet solidarity. We don't have a concept of party room solidarity in the Liberal and National parties. The Labor Party does, but we do allow our backbenchers, like myself, to vote against whatever the party room view is on a matter and not suffer consequences. Well, not direct consequences. Some people might not like having a cup of coffee with you for a while, but I've been in that boat many times and exercised that freedom. I think it's a good freedom because your parliamentarians should be able to vote in what they view as the best interests of their constituents, whereas the Labor Party, they are lockstep and barrel controlled by the Labor Party machine. Now, in saying that, what we have in our system is if you are a shadow minister or a minister if we're in government, you are obligated to vote along the lines of the decision of that shadow cabinet or cabinet. And the dispute here is whether or not the shadow cabinet actually came to a decision on this bill. As I said, the bill was changed substantially on the Tuesday morning. My understanding is shadow cabinet met last on the Sunday evening. So there's a question over that. Look, I'm not a member of shadow cabinet, so I can't conclusively tell you what happened or what was decided. There's some dispute. I can say, though, we didn't have a joint party room meeting that week, which is the first time in my career we haven't had one during a parliamentary sitting week. I think that was a failure of process that should not be repeated. We need to communicate with each other properly, give people early warnings of our views. I also would say, look, while shadow cabinet solidarity is a principle we have, like all rules, sometimes they can be bended and be flexible. And the last time this happened, the last time the Liberal and National parties in opposition voted differently on a piece of legislation was in 2008. The then Labor government was trying to deregulate the wheat industry. The Liberal Party supported that position, the Nationals Party opposed. And our shadow ministers, our Nationals Party shadow ministers, voted against the Liberal Party position. On that, no one was sacked. The coalition did not break. We accepted we had a principled point of difference and moved on. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why the same approach hasn't applied here. This bill went to some fundamental questions of freedoms and how we keep people safe and security. It's not particularly surprising that people can come to different conclusions about the balance between those things. I think we could have just respected our differences accepted that this time we may not impose shadow cabinet solidarity in a rigid way, and we'd move on, and we probably wouldn't be talking about this now if we'd done that.
Do you miss the cut and thrust of being in the shadow cabinet and also being in government and being in cabinet and having a say, or do you find it just as satisfying being in the background on the backbench but still being a major player? Whether you agree or not, you are still a major player. You worked with the Turnbull government. You were elevated to cabinet. You were Minister for Resources, Northern Australia in the second Turnbull ministry. So do you miss having that elevation?
Well, I'd like us to be in government because I think that would be better for the country. I think since the election of the Labor government, we've had a massive drop in living standards. We're losing manufacturing businesses left, right and centre. So I'd like us to be in government. In saying that, as I said earlier, I think we made mistakes in government. That's why I was often opposed to certain policies. And we need to refresh ourselves and accept that the Australian people didn't think we were doing a good job and get better at what we did. That's why we got tossed out. So, look, I like both my roles. I'm not going to wallow in any sense of self-pity. I'm very, very honoured and privileged to be elected a member of Parliament. I never thought I'd be in this position. It's a wonderful privilege. So it was a great honour to be a minister, and I did my best in that role. But as the chips fell, I couldn't continue in the cabinet given some of the policies that were being pursued. So now I pursue my career as a backbench senator with just as much vigour and drive, and I appreciate the compliment that I maybe have some influence. But yeah, I certainly don't think I've been able to. I haven't been just sitting as a wallflower in the Senate. I still get things done, even from opposition. Little things like here in Rockhampton where I live, from opposition. We got the Rockhampton Ring Road restarted. The Labor government pulled the funding for it, but we pursued a campaign. It's not so little for us, maybe little in the whole scheme of things, but it's a really, really important thing for us locally. And I've got a massive voice, a massive platform, the opportunity to rally people to a cause, and you can make a difference. And that's why I'm in politics. That's why I do this. That's why I spend half the year away from my family, to make that difference for my local community that makes people's lives better. That's all I want.
Okay, but just getting back to the challenge, and we'll find out next week whether or not Colin Boyce will be successful, and I don't think he will be. But you yourself challenged Littleproud for leadership, didn't you, after the federal election last year?
Yeah, I did.
So why did you challenge for the leadership? Why did you think you could be a better leader of the Nationals than David Littleproud? And there's nothing wrong. And there's nothing wrong with being ambitious. Let me just say that.
Well, I challenged because our performance at the election was piss poor. I mean, it's simple as that. I mean, it was a terrible, woeful result. And this is not a game. This is not, kumbaya around the campfire. This is real people's lives. And when we lose like that, real consequences flow.
But the Nationals,
accountability.
The coalition did badly. The coalition did badly, but the National Party held on to their seats.
But we were signed up with them. We the strategy we pursued, the policies we adopted were all done in unison. So I don't accept that either. It's not fair to Liberal Party to say, it wasn't our fault. The work from home policy wasn't our fault. Backing net zero wasn't our fault. No. We did it in lockstep with them. And so we had to reflect on that. And I think it was absolutely right that somebody challenged. Now, to be absolutely honest with you, Luke, I was trying to find someone from the lower house because, given our previous discussion, you are right that the perception is a leader has to be from the lower house. And so I had a handicap. I had led in my saddlebags from the get-go, coming from the Senate. But no one would challenge, and I don't think it's fair in life to think other people should do something if you're not prepared to do it yourself. And so I said, well, look, I'll do it. And I put forward the challenge. I knew, as I said, I was always an outsider, rank outsider. But I gave it a shot, and I am happy that I put that net zero issue on the agenda. That really kick-started with that leadership challenge. And I give David his due. I think he's learnt from the election loss. He has done a better job as a leader of a party since. We all get better in our lives and we get things we can improve on. David has. And so I give him that. And so I don't regret for a second challenging, because I think it's important for people to be challenged in roles like this. It makes you better when you are put under the screws, put under the spotlight. And as I said, we did need to have a big spotlight put on that election performance.
David Littleproud is probably more vulnerable today than he was back then, and that could be argued. But why aren't you challenging again?
What do you mean more vulnerable?
Well, the split in the coalition, two splits in less than 12 months. People are seeing the coalition as particularly vulnerable, and there is criticism that David Littleproud has contributed to this. That's why Boyce is challenging. You have challenged. Do you think you could do a better job? I'm keen to know why Matt Canavan isn't challenging again.
Okay, well, I don't blame David for the leadership, for the coalition splits, and nor do the vast majority of my colleagues, in my view. As I've outlined earlier, we took a position on this issue. I believe it was communicated to Liberal leadership, and the Liberal leader, Susan Lee, made a decision that shadow ministers who had that view, who were opposed to these hate speech laws, couldn't serve in the ministry. So I don't think that was David's fault at all for a second, so that's why I'm not challenging.
Let me ask you this. I want you to look into your crystal ball, and I know you're going to say I don't speak for the Liberals, but I want to know what Matt Canavan thinks. Who do you think are the main front runners for leadership of the Liberal Party? Everyone's talking Andrew Hastie and Angus Taylor. I want you to give me your crystal ball, because we'll find out next week. Who do you think, is Susan Lee going to go? And if she does, who do you think will be the next leader of the Liberal Party?
Yeah, well, I'm going to disappoint you, so I'm not going to speculate on whether she goes.
Oh, come on, give me
what I will say.
Senator,
what I will say.
Give me a headline.
Look, it's a matter for the Liberal Party, but I and it's true. It's their party. Like anything I say.
All right, this is where it gets interesting. Power B's already doing the heavy lifting. Full meal replacement, chocolate flavour. It really fills you up, and it's the only shake in Australia with Nature Bee's power pollen inside it. You've got premium grass-fed whey protein, 4 strains of probiotics, vitamins designed to keep you fueled without overthinking it, 2 shakes a day alongside a balanced diet and exercise. Done. But here's the kicker. Nature Bee's running a bucket list competition. And it wraps up Friday, January 30. We're talking about scoring a $20,000 life-changing travel experience. Amalfi Coast, Egypt, the Great Barrier Reef, the Grand Canyon by helicopter, anything you want. 10 more winners get gift cards and Nature Bee prizes as well. And all you need to do is spend $79.90 for your chance to win. All you need is a valid passport and a little bit of initiative. And yep, it's backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. Click the links in the description. Head to naturebee.com.
It's just, potentially going to make things worse, and I don't want to make things worse. I want to make things better for ourselves, for the Australian people. But what I will say is, I go back to what I said before. I mean, this is a performance-based game. You look at high-level, high-elite sports. If a halfback makes a number of mistakes over a few games, he gets dropped. It's very brutal, and there's no reason why a similar level of accountability shouldn't be applied to this endeavour, which is about your lives. And so the simple truth for Susan, for any leader, is if she is not cutting through, if the polls aren't improving, if we're not putting ourselves in a winning position for the Australian people, there'll be pressure on her. Just as there has for every leader of a major political party over the last decade. So I wish her well, and I hope things can improve, but that is going to be her challenge. So I don't know if it'll happen next week, but there's a big challenge for her, obviously. It's a very, very tough job. In terms of the other people in the Liberal Party, I've got great hope. I think there are excellent people in the Liberal Party, and whether or not Susan continues, I've got a lot of confidence that we will bounce back. These are tough days, these are difficult times, but it's never as dark as people fear, and it's never as bright as people hope, right? There's always some sort of level balance. So key thing here is, like Kipling said, is just keep your head while everyone else is losing theirs. And that's all I'm focused on doing. Andrew Hastie's great. Angus Taylor's great. There's some other young people coming through that are fantastic. Aaron Violi in Victoria. Look, I'm gonna forget people, and that's gonna
is Jacinta.
I mentioned a few. Garth Hamilton up here, and Phil Thompson up in Townsville, fantastic bloke. There are great young people that have a new drive, new vision, new ideas that are going to save us. They're going to save the Liberal National Party, and I think they'll save Australia eventually as well.
Jacinta Napajimba-Price was a star during the no vote. Let me ask you this, just to use your football analogy, can I continue it? So if you've got a halfback that's not directing the team and losing your games over a period of time, you've got to have someone on the bench ready to replace that halfback. You've mentioned some names there, and I've written them down, and I'm going to watch really eagerly next year. But Jacinta Price was a star. Is she a potential leader?
Yeah, there's no doubt she is. I said I'd miss some, and I did miss Jacinta. Maybe it's still a bit raw because she did leave us, Luke. So
yeah.
Maybe it's my subconscious kicking in there. And look, I was filthy at Jacinta for what she did, particularly straight after an election where she was elected a Nationals Party senator with our support and help. It was pretty much a dog act. And look, I don't think it's in the short term. You can't argue it hasn't really worked out for her. But I do think she's a political rock star, and she'll bounce back. As I say, there's always tough times, but that just makes you tougher, and she'll be made tougher from this. She's already a pretty tough cookie as it was, so she'll bounce back, and she's definitely got huge potential going forward for our movement.
Senator Matt Canavan, last question. And I ask a lot of our guests this question without notice. All my questions today have been without notice. But what would Senator Matt Canavan today, if you could go back in time in a DeLorean with a flux capacitor, what advice would Senator Matt Canavan today give to a 16-year-old Matt Canavan?
Take risks, yeah. I like that. I don't know if you've been following or live online too much, but there's that documentary with the penguin that's gone viral last week where this lone penguin leaves his colony and heads to the mountains, and every time they try and bring him back, he just goes to the mountains. Go to the mountains. Go and follow what you think you're good at, what you can do, and just give it a crack. Bite off more than you can chew. The other thing is, just have kids. They're the most important thing in life. Have as many as you can. They're beautiful, blessing every child I've got. I've got 5, luckily, with my wife. So. Yep, find someone nice to share that with, and have lots of children. When
I first entered the workforce at the age of 16 years and 4 months, and I got a job at 2GB as an office boy, and my dad said to me, he gave me some great advice. He said, "Son, as you slowly climb the ladder of success, be careful of the fingers you tread on the way up, because they're the same fingers around your throat on the way down."
To drag you down, exactly right. So, yeah, that's great advice too. Yeah, just be a good person, work hard, try and help people, and things will work out.
The other one was, "Son, as you slide down the banister of life, all I can hope for is that most of the splinters are pointing in the right direction."
Yeah, exactly. So. No, it's a great adventure and journey, and it is so now in my life. So looking forward to seeing what happens next.
Thanks for spending some time with us, Senator Matt Canavan. Hope you enjoyed it. I did. It's an interesting insight, and my God, it's going to be an interesting week.
Yep, sure is. Life, we live in interesting times, so never know what curveballs you're going to get thrown. So thanks very much, Luke. I enjoyed it too. Have a good one.
I'm sitting back, radio on, loop on, talking. Keeps me rolling along, stories and laughter that brighten my day. Got that bluesy rhythm, but it's swinging my way. Oh, I got the look on a blues, but they're the kind that chase away the gloom. Tapping my feet, smiling wide, happy blues, right with me tonight. From the outback tales to the city lights, spinning yarns that feel just right. Every word's a beat, every lap's a tune, turning my blues into sunshine soon. Now the blues ain't always sad, you see.
Well, James, I'm very flattered, but I think you've got massive problems, and if I'm on your list, you really are at the bottom now. How many were before me, mate?
You're number 43.
Oh,
so there's
shit.
been a few before you.
Okay, who was 42?
42 was Rob McKnight. He used to be a TV producer.
Yeah, I know who Rob. So I came after Rob McKnight. Who was 41?
41 was, geez.
Yeah.
That's the money.
See, it's a
and it only happened a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
it's
a prestigious list, isn't it? I'm so
when
flattered.
you don't have it on hand, you're like...
I'm so flattered I'm 44.
Would you have agreed to do it if you were episode number 1?
Well, yeah, of course. There'd be a fee. But no, of course. Of course.
So you started as a teenager in radio?
I started when I was 16 and 4 months. May, June, July, August. Yeah, 6 and 4 months. So I was at school at Narrabeen. It was Narrabeen High then. It wasn't the boys' school. And I was shit at school. I wasn't interested. I was interested in 3 subjects, basketball, recess, and girls. But I enjoyed music. In fact, Kelsey's mum, Nikki, we went to school together. And we were in the same music class. Yeah. And I was, my mother was involved in the music recording industry. She managed the jazz musician Don Burrows and produced him for about 10 years. And I was surrounded by brilliant musicians. And I thought I wanted to be a sound engineer because I was even though I'm musical, I was nowhere in the stratosphere of Don Burrows and George Goller and Stefan Grappelli and those people. So I thought, no, I've got a good ear. I could be a sound engineer. And so I wrote about 160 letters to anywhere that had a recording desk. And I got 2 replies. One was from Channel 7 and one was from 2GB. Both of them said, we have nothing here for you, but we'll keep your letter on file should anything appear. Right, yeah. So I went back to school for year 11. So September comes along and my mother said, I got a phone call from 2GB. I said, really? They're looking for an office boy. And the bloke who's hiring is the general manager. His name was Ron Hurst. He used to be the general manager of 7 Records back in those days, but he was now at 2GB, which was owned by Fairfax. And so I went in for an interview and I got the job. And my job was to run mail within the building. And the building is still there, corner of Liverpool and Sussex Street. But I also had to run mail all around Sydney because there were no faxes. There was no emails. If a message or a document had to get from A to B, you ran it on foot or you paid for a courier. So I would run it. And you'd often run from Liverpool Street or Sussex Street up to Broadway, which is where the Fairfax Herald head office was, or to Holt Street where News Limited was, and you'd run mail. And they'd give you 20 cents bus fare to get there, but they never asked for a receipt. So what we did was we got on Shank's pony and we ran and pocketed the 20 cents. So it was a great rort. But in every ounce of spare time that I had, I spent in the studio learning the equipment. And then a job came up in the tape room and I became a panel operator. And there it was.
What an origin story.
Look, I was very lucky, but I was pretty determined as well. And I was really lucky to be surrounded by some amazing broadcasters. I mean, I know you're a bit younger than me, but if you want to Google these names, you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, when I joined 2GB, breakfast was Brian Bury. Mornings was Jimmy Hannon. Barry Friedman did the news hour. You had Bill Dowsett and Mickey DeStoop doing afternoon, Sam Gallier on drive. And then at nights, the great John Pearce. And then when John Pearce left to go to TUE, Brian Wilshire took over. So they're the kind of people I know. So I actually panelled the demo that Brian Wilshire put together when he got the job at 2GB. So that was 1979. So how's that? I was 16 and a bit.
Yeah, that's great. I love stories like that in radio where you really started from sort of the bottom and worked your way up.
It was the very, very bottom. And I did kind of work my way up. I left 2GB 1980 and went to 2LF at Young and did the night program. So you leave 2GB, a massive station in Sydney, and you go to 2LF Young, population then I think about 5,000, and I did the night program, spinning discs, playing records, taking requests, and then at midnight you had to announce that the station was closing down. You played the national anthem, you turned the transmitter off, and then you went and washed up the coffee cups and put the garbage out. So there you are.
All part of the job, hey?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a really important part of the job, and it makes me a little bit sad that because of the technology that we now have with voice tracking and satellites, a lot of those wonderful training shifts at country stations like 2LF at Young have gone because everything's networked now, and that training ground has disappeared. And I think it's a real shame for the industry. And it really pisses me off when you see people who had a fleeting moment on a reality TV show doing highly paid breakfast shifts on capital city radio. It absolutely pisses me off because radio is a craft.
Me too.
Radio is an absolute craft, and I'm worried that it's going.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and I've had a lot of discussions with content directors just trying to get gigs and through this podcast, and it's kind of split on that opinion. A lot sort of have the same feeling as us, but a lot are like, nah, it's great because they have an established fan base already. They have followers. All these people are going to be tuning into the radio show, and then they don't, and then they're terrible on air, and they can't figure out what's wrong with that.
Yeah, because, you see, you just said content director. In our day, they were program directors that had a budget and they hired the talent. Now, most content directors have to manage the talent that management give them, which is a bit sad. But anyway.
That's a very good point.
I mean, you look at, I was very lucky to have worked underneath the guidance of the great John Brennan. And Breno was a kingmaker. He didn't make a king out of me, but he encouraged me and we got on very, very well. But, I mean, you look at John Brennan, who turned 2SM in the 70s to number one, goes to 2UE, does the same thing, goes to 2GB and does the same thing, and had an absolute hand in hiring people like Alan Jones, hired Ray Hadley, hired Mike Gibson and George Moore. You know, John Brennan actually had the say and developed talent, but had an amazing ear and eye for spotting talent. So those people, sadly, are going away from the industry or aren't in the industry anymore because a lot of the stations are run by bean counters and accountants and not people who have a passion for the industry.
And it also pisses me off too, like all the press releases now, there's a few of them. You'll see it on Radio Today. You'll see it on any of the industry websites. When they've got someone from TikTok or something, it's the first thing they say. They've got like 1 million followers on TikTok. And I'm thinking, okay, how many of these people are legitimate accounts? How many are bought accounts? How many are bots? I don't know how that's a credential, but apparently it is.
Well, let me give you a little word of advice, James, and you can keep this. People who think they're popular because the amount of likes they have on social media are just like people who think they're rich while playing Monopoly.
That's great. I like that.
Yeah.
I've also said people who go on about the social media stuff now. When I was in high school, MySpace was a big thing. And people used to go around going, oh, I got 2,000 friends on MySpace. And it's like, no, actually, you're a loser. You have no actual real friends. They're all just digital. It's not real life.
Yeah. Well, my producer, the millennial, it understands all this, and she believes it's very important. I don't give a rat's about it. But I used to get Facebook and MySpace mixed up all the time, and I used to ask people, "Are you going to sit on my face all night?" And I got into terrible trouble.
So, overnight radio, midnight to dawn. That's a very specific beast. What do you think makes a great overnight talker?
A good listener. You know, when you're on at that time of the morning, you've got people who are listening to every word and you're keeping them company. And often you're their life and they feel they really know you, and you develop a unique relationship with your listeners when you're not pressured by 18 minutes of ads an hour, 4 traffic breaks, 2 news bulletins, having to play 5 songs. Nah, when you're on at that time, you have time to develop a relationship with your listeners like no one else can. And that's a really important thing. But you've also got to listen to what they have to say. And I remember, once again, the great John Brennan used to say, I'll do the voice, Lukey boy, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them proportionately.
Do you think, because I done Mid to Dawn as well. I was on Macquarie Regional Radio for a couple of years, and I was doing the Miners Overnight program.
Mm-hmm. What was that?
Defunct now. It got sold off. Of
course it did.
Part of it became resident radio and out in Kingaroy, 4SB Kingaroy.
Yeah.
Part of it was sold off to Nine Radio, and it all split up.
It's very sad. Yep. Because there's not a lot of revenue in that time of the morning. But go on.
Yeah, that's what sucks. I was just saying, like, my experience doing overnight radio, everything you said, it was just great. Not only was it a great training ground because it was my first commercial radio gig, but the relationship with the listeners is something I don't see or hear in Breakfast or Drive or a Workday Shift Now or anything like that. It's so more involved because you are people's friends.
Oh, you're their life. Yeah, you become part of their lives because you've got the time, as I was trying to say before, you've got the time to do it. And you've got time to hear their stories, which you don't have in breakfast or a busy time of the day. So it's a unique time. It really is a unique time.
So your Triple M show was networked across a bunch of markets. How did you kind of manage to have broad appeal to every station you were going to, but also kind of have that localism to you?
Well, I learned how to juggle it. I was very, very lucky. I had 71 transmitters to play with, which was a bit frightening. But so I would look for topics that affected everyone, no matter where you lived. I steered away from parochialism. So I chose topics very carefully that would affect all my listeners. It could be your hip pocket. It could be about your neighbours. It could be about things that upset you and bother you and piss you off. It could be about a good deed that someone's done for you. There are plenty of generic topics that involve all Australians. And I left the local stuff to the local stations, and I talked about Australia and Australian people and Australian values. And those things affect all of us, don't they?
It's a big loss since you've gone. And I used to tune in all the time. And it was good to just have a show that's happening live. And you could tune in at 3 a.m. in the morning if you happen to be awake. You can tune in at 1 a.m. and you're there and you get caught up in the discussion. You get caught up in the phone topic. And, it's sad it's gone. And
I enjoyed it. The hours were tough, but I just loved the interaction with those very, very special listeners. And I only played 2 songs an hour because one of the last real program directors was a bloke called Mike Fitzpatrick, who learnt from Guy Dobson, who started the Triple M network. And Fitzy said, how'd you like to come across to the M's? And I said, oh, really? He said, yeah. He said, you get to play Cold Chisel, Led Zeppelin and the Foo Fighters, and you can talk about whatever you want. We won't interfere. I said, where do I sign?
That's the dream, isn't it?
It was.
It was amazing.
It was. It was great.
Only thing I didn't like was some of the branding, because you were on Triple M, where I live on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland.
Yeah.
It will have the Triple M branding, and then straight after it'll be the local Sunshine Coast branding. And I'm like, can't we have a Sunny Coast panel up here or something like they used to do with like Hamish and Andy and Kyle and Jackie O, that type of stuff? It didn't. It used to bug me. It's just a nerdy radio thing.
Yeah, well, I mean,
no one probably else cared.
No, Sunshine Coast. What was the station?
92.7 Mix FM.
Yeah, I went to visit there. I went and visited your breakfast show. So,
did you really?
Yeah. So what you do is your traffic person or whoever. Traffic, by the way, folks, is massaging logs. It's got nothing to do with cars and trucks. The bloke who massaged your logs would have had a local ID and a local promo within your commercial breaks, but there's no one's going to employ a panel operator overnight. So that was the way it was. But yes, your station didn't actually rebrand as Triple M, but Guy, I think you were part of the Resonate. Were you were part of the Resonate network, or anyway, Guy Dobson was on your board, and he loved the show, so that's why you took it, I think.
Yeah, Mix and CFM are GSL Media. But at one point, had to be sold a couple of years.
Yeah, I remember. But Guy Dobson, while I was on your station, Guy Dobson was on your board of directors. So so he would have said, let's put Lukey Boy on the wireless overnight.
Exactly like that.
To that effect.
So looking back on your career, what do you think you're most proud of?
Being punted 3 times and surviving. I don't know. I know that my program, with the help of the wonderful Reverend Jim Reynolds, Jim tells me that through counselling and offering people who were feeling distressed at that time of the morning, vulnerable and disenfranchised, Jim tells me we saved directly, that he knows of, 16 lives. So how's that?
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So did these people get in contact or?
Yeah, they rang up. They were distressed. We referred them to Jim. We kept in touch with them. And they went from feeling they had nothing left to live for to something to making them feel worthwhile. So the Reverend Jim Reynolds, who's the head of the Outreach Ministries, you should have a chat with him, because it was a very big part of his life too.
Yeah, I wish the radio people would hear this and realise how important overnight radio can be.
It really is important, but there's not a lot of revenue in there, and when you're cutting corners and trying to set up a network to sell, you cut everything you can to make the books look a little bit better. But I didn't. I didn't mind. I was luckily enough financially in control, and which is a good thing to be. It's great to be able to say no to a job you don't want. But I could see it coming. A lot of good people had to leave Southern Cross Austereo because of all of this, and it happens. It's sad, but in the world of business, it's inevitable, and it's about business. It's like The Godfather, don't take it personally. It's only business,
So what was the day-to-day production of your Triple M show? So were you panel operating, or did you have a panel op?
No, I did it all.
You just behind the mic?
No.
You did it all?
Did it all. Absolutely all. And I had a producer by the name of Tom Denham, who came to us with a little bit of radio experience, but most of his experience with it was at Afters. And he was just a gem. We grew together. We learnt each other, and we just made radio magic. It was just the two of us. And, I miss it very much. But I'm still working with Thomas on my podcast. So, the love goes. The love keeps going.
That segues good into your podcast. That launched fairly quickly after you left Triple M, did it?
Yeah. Look, the millennial who was also working for SCA producing podcasts for Listener, and my son Jacob, if you listen to my podcast, the opener is actually all my son's production and his voice. He's a massive consumer of podcasts. He doesn't listen to free-to-air radio at all. Everything he listens to while he's working with his headphones on is a podcast of his choice. And he said, Dad, you've got to get into this podcast caper. And I said, look, I don't know anything about it. But I sort of was forced into it. And then when the Triple M thing came and we had sponsors who were with me at Triple M saying, well, we'll jump onto your podcast because you get results. That's when it happened. And Kelsey put it all together. She built a studio. She put all the equipment together. She and her fiance, who's a wizard at IT, put everything together, and they sat me in front of a microphone and said, keep going, which is great because I get to talk to interesting people. And once again, I'm not hampered by time, so I have time to hear people's stories, which is great.
Yeah, so it's been a good transition for you from commercial radio to a podcast.
I do like the live stuff, and I'm still on 2GB when someone goes on holidays. I've just finished over Christmas the afternoon program for Michael McLaren on 2GB, and I've done Drive for Clinton Maynard on 2GB a few times now. So I'm still able to keep my hand in there, but I'm not about to go and do an overnight show ever again.
Ever again? Just the hours, over the hours?
Yeah, yeah. I would do it if I had 71 transmitters. I would go back to Triple M and do that again if we could come to an arrangement, because I do miss it. But the hours are tough. So now I get to talk to people. I still have an audience. Thank God my sponsors have come with me and they're getting results, so they're happy. And so it continues.
What do you think's the most difference you've seen doing a podcast that you're like, oh, this is completely different to radio?
Yeah, well, it's not different to radio. It's different to some parts of radio. It's different to the live talkback, and that's unique. I do miss the live interaction. I get that on 2GB. I take live calls, and we have on the podcast on one occasion done a live YouTube hour, and that went off, and we're going to do another one. Kelsey's organising it. So we are still going to do live radio, but on the podcast on YouTube.
Oh, yeah?
Watch the space. What you watch it. It'll happen. Yeah.
And it's going to have the live comments racing up the screen and everything?
Yep. It'll have all that. It'll be just like a live radio show, but it'll be broadcast on YouTube.
The only thing you got to watch with those comments, you got to watch some of those comments.
Yeah, I understand.
Sometimes there'll be some trolls in there, you know?
Yeah, well, stuff them. I wouldn't say anything. I keep a number of people in my mind when I broadcast. One is my missus, Nikki, Kelsey's mum. Nikki's parents, who are in their late 80s, I have their faces and their approval also on my mind, and my kids. So I try and make my kids, my missus, and her parents proud. And if you can cover those three demographics, you're laughing.
Well, I think you have broad appeal. I think you appeal to a lot of people. Like, I'm in my 30s and I'm a big fan, and I think there's people a bit older than me that are fans. So I think that's why podcasting is working for you as well.
Yeah, and I was also very lucky to go from 2GB, where I was the naughty nephew, to Triple M, where I became the very naughty uncle. And that was a lot of fun. But I just keep my children in my mind, my missus in my mind, and Nikki's parents in my mind. And that ranges from 30s to 60s to late 80s.
Someone starting in radio in 2026, they're brand new. What would your advice be to them?
Go to Afters and learn the basics of your craft, and then be a pest. Knock on every radio station door and do as much as you can, and intern everywhere and do every shift you possibly can and learn every aspect. I mean, you might want to be a broadcaster, a presenter, but spend a week in sales, spend a week in production. Have a look at what the techs do. They are the most important people at the radio station, because if your equipment breaks, you don't go to air without them. Always be nice to the techs. Learn how to produce, how to do the phones, how to edit, use Pro Tools. Learn every single aspect of radio, because it's only then that you'll really get it. And my other advice, and my dad once taught me this just after I started at 2GB, I really want you to listen to this. His advice was, son, as you slowly climb the ladder of success, be very, very careful of the fingers you tread on the way up, because they're the same fingers around your throat on your way down.
When you finally, hopefully it's a while away, but when you eventually step away from the mic completely, how do you want your radio and now podcasting career to be remembered?
Well, I don't know, because when I step away from the microphone, I would have collapsed and I'd be dead. I can't imagine. I can't imagine life without a microphone. You look at what happened to Lawsy the moment he gave it away, and some people say, well, maybe he should have given it away a bit earlier when he was on 2SM, but he didn't need the money. He just loved talking to people, and he loved the job. You've got to have a reason to put your feet on the ground when you get out of bed every day. Otherwise, you waste away. So I don't know. It's a tough question, because I can't imagine life away from the microphone. So ask me another one.
What excites you about radio 40 years later?
The spontaneity, the magic. Radio is the theatre of the mind. And I worry that we have a breed of radio presenters that are just in it for self-gratification and the money, and they don't really understand. Let me just tell you, I actually still call it wireless. Yeah, I started in 1978 surrounded by radio veterans. And there's a picture at 2GB in an office on a floor. Can you believe it? They have just done renovations, and I hope it doesn't stay on the floor. It's a picture of the great Jack Davey. Now, if anyone understood that radio was the theatre of the mind, it was the great Jack Davey. If you don't know, James, who Jack Davey is, I suggest very strongly that you Google him and listen to as much as what he did. He was kind of like Australia's. He was kind of like Australia's Bob Hope. He could do anything.
Oh, okay.
He did the Quiz Kids. He did all sorts of quiz shows. He always worked with a live studio audience when 2GB was in Phillip Street, and he was a radio magician, and he called it wireless. And I still call it wireless. And I just hope that new people coming into the industry kind of get what I'm saying.
I totally get what you're saying, but they wouldn't. The TikTokers just see it as content or a leapfrog to something else, and that's where we're at, apparently.
Well, unfortunately, the industry's let that happen. I mean, the fact that the Australian commercial radio industry has dropped the ACRAs, our awards night, it's a really, really sad reflection on where it's going. That to me, imagine TV cancelling the Logies. Well, a lot of people think they should because they're so self-indulgent. I don't watch them. But the commercial radio industry cancelled its own awards. Not on anymore. Well, Jesus Christ. That's sad. Mind you, I've won 6 of them.
Got to have that mic drop moment.
Exactly.
What I thought about the ACRAs, I agree it was sad. But what I didn't like was some of the responses some people were putting online. I saw one post from someone who wrote, now we have no motivation or incentive to show up to work and do our job. Yeah. And I'm reading this and I'm like, okay, look, I get where you're coming from, but me, I'm not working in commercial radio anymore. I would love to. I don't have a gig. To me, you have a gig. And you've already won the prize of having the commercial radio job. Done. You get to do radio every day.
Yeah, well done. If the reason that person is in radio, if the only reason is so they can win an ACRA, they're not in radio for the right reasons. Piss off. Go to television. The reason you should be in radio is to entertain people and do the very best you can. And when that curtain goes up and the on-air light starts to strobe, to do your very best. And you're there to entertain, and you're there to sell advertising if you're in commercial radio. If your sole reason for being in radio and your only motivation is to win an ACRA, piss off.
You might have already answered this one, but how do you see radio change from when you started to what it is now?
When I started in radio, it was all about entertainment, building an audience and making a difference. Now I listen to the very droll, fabricated FM breakfast radio shows, and it's just unbelievably pedestrian. And there's no surprises anymore. So the days of Lawsy and Doug Mulray and the Jack Davies and plenty of other great broadcasters, and Brian Wilshire. Oh, God, he just passed away, aged 81, very sad. The new breed of radio presenters, it's all very self-indulgent. Not that it wasn't. I mean, you have to have a big ego to be in radio. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. As Skyhooks once said, it's not a dirty word, but you're there to entertain. And the moment you want to stop entertaining, and it's just there for your own gratification, give it away. Go back to reality TV. Go do your own podcast. That'll keep you honest. Go and see if anyone listens. Go back to reality TV or do the stand-up circuit and see if people turn up.
I love all the shots being fired. I'm swinging punches as red as well. It's like Rocky in here. Yeah, finally someone's saying it.
It doesn't matter how much you get hit so long as you keep moving. Yeah.
I ask everybody this question to wrap up, kind of.
Yeah, so I'm not.
Deep.
So you've asked this question 44 times. Fantastic. Keep going.
Well, I think it can be kind of deep and kind of not.
I couldn't be 43. I couldn't be 43, could I? I had to be 44. Yeah, go on, James. I'm keen to hear.
What would 5-year-old you think about how your life turns out?
Gee whiz, who's going to listen to this and what are the chances of me being sued? I wish I hadn't made some of the choices I'd made, but I don't regret much. In fact, I've got more to be thankful about than regret because I was very, very lucky to have met people like Craig Willis, who was still a mentor of mine, and people like Carol Miller and Jimmy Hannon, and most of all, Ron Camplin, who was the owner of 2BS in Bathurst, who just let me have my reins, and I still call him MOD, my other dad. God, I was lucky to have Ron Camplin and to have met people like John Brennan. So I was very, very lucky. So I've got more to be thankful for than regrets. I think if your ledger of life has regrets outnumbering achievements, well, it's a very, very sad reflection on your life. So I'm lucky. I'm in the plus. I've got healthy children. I live with a woman I adore, and I work in an industry still because I'm still at 2GB, and I'm lucky enough now because I'm also on the 7 network on Sunrise regularly. So I still have that outlet. So I'm very, very lucky. The advice my dad gave me is really the advice, I'll say it again, as you climb the ladder of success, be careful of the fingers you're treading on because they're the same fingers around your throat on the way down. Coming up, Truckee Tuesday with Rod Hannafy.
Now, we recorded our chat with Rod before we came across an email from Alexander and actually a whole bunch of other listeners who was letting us know that there had been an update on the Berrima crash situation. And of course, we will get Rod's opinion on this next week because he is, a lot more informed than we are. But we just wanted to bring you guys the update so you guys are up to date. This was posted by the Facebook page Australian Road Train Life. We've summarised the post here, but we'll put the link to the post in the episode description so you can go read it yourself.
Yeah, so there's been a significant update on the Berrima truck crash with information coming directly from Mick Shelton's family and eyewitnesses.
This corrects some of the early assumptions too. Mick Shelton, a 55-year-old truckie with over 30 years on the road, was doing everything right that night. He was travelling at the speed limit 100 kilometres on the Hume Highway near Berrima when he rounded a corner in the dark and came up on a B-double crawling at just 1 to 3 kilometres in a 100 zone. And Mick just had seconds to react apparently, and he had 44 tonnes of milk behind him, and he made a split second half-metre steering move that saved his life, and without it, investigators are now saying the crash would have been fatal on impact. Even so, the injuries were horrific. He was trapped in the cab, fully conscious, bleeding heavily, convinced he was dying. 2 other truckies, Brian Walder and a young bloke named Dominic Zammit, they were the first on scene. They forced the door open with a pinch bar and kept Mick talking for 90 minutes and called for an air ambulance. Without the airlift, he wouldn't have survived the trip. But while that was happening, the driver of the B-double got out and started taking photos. Didn't help. He just took photos. When told to stop, he said, "It's for insurance." Later, as paramedics worked on Mick, several bystanders were also filming. Police and emergency services were reportedly disgusted and told them to back off. Mick was resuscitated at the scene, airlifted to Liverpool Hospital, placed on life support for 4 days and suffered massive injuries, shattered ribs and sternum plated with titanium, punctured lungs, head injury, shoulder damage. It just goes on and on. The investigation confirmed the B-double was travelling at 1 to 3 3 kilometres an hour on a flat highway with nothing loaded in the A trailer. UHF records show other drivers had been calling the B-double driver, telling him to pull over. He was swerving and appeared exhausted. Police told the family they believed the driver was asleep but can't prove it. And here's the kicker, Luke. So because of a legal loophole, while it's legal for a car to crawl along a highway at that speed, there's no equivalent offence for trucks. So as long as the vehicle is technically moving, no one is considered at fault. So there's no charges, no accountability. The police have deemed it no one's fault. And the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator says it's gathering evidence, but there's no timeline. So Tasfreight has also declined to offer. So Mick did everything right. Investigators told the family there was nothing more he could have done. The half-metre adjustment is the only reason he's alive. And now he's facing, physical and a psychological recovery as well. But the bigger question is, if it's illegal for cars, why is it illegal for trucks? How many more people need to be crushed before that loophole gets closed? I never knew that. I never knew that that rule didn't apply to trucks.
No, I didn't either. It is against the law to drive, I think, 20 kilometres under the speed limit for no apparent reason, but it's not illegal for trucks. It's a question for Rod Hannafy, and we'll certainly chase it up with him next time we chat.
One of my friends got fined like $350 for driving too slow in the right-hand lane.
Good. So they should have.
I know, good. But it's crazy that trucks don't have that same type of rules. Anyway, yes, we shall talk to Rod Hannafy about this next week, and we shall be doing it from where, Luke?
From Dubbo, and I'll be in the
Dubbo.
Front seat of his Kenworth, having a look at things firsthand, and I can't wait. Really looking forward to that. Don't know how I'm going to go driving to Dubbo with you and your mum. That's another.
It'll be fine.
Who gets to control the music in the car?
We can take turns.
Who gets the front seat? Oh, I'm driving.
You're driving.
No, we're going to take it in turns. And we might see if we can...
You don't want me driving your AMG?
No, we're not taking that. We're going to take your mum's car.
Oh, fair enough.
We were also hoping to stop off quickly in Bathurst because I want to show you around the Bathurst Mount Panorama Motor Racing Hall of Fame.
Oh, if you can show the audience that, but...
Yeah, we're going to stop there
You're not showing me anything new, buddy.
We'll stop in there just for something to eat and a break.
Let's say hi to Pecky.
We'll say hello to Pecky. No, maybe not.
Why not?
We can.
I love Pecky.
We all love Pecky.
Thanks to right and a foot. On the highway driving all day. And at night when the traffic's slow. Getting goods from state across lines. We're ready to go. Without trucks, Australia.
Rod, my dad used to have a saying, start with beer, finish with beer. Start with beer, finish with beer. And he also used to say, don't mix the grain with the grape. Have you heard that one?
I have heard of similar things, yes. Stay on one thing and keep your way through, and probably good advice.
All right, so we were going to involve the millennial, but we're not. She's going to switch off now and close her eyes. And have you had a Barocca? Have you had... She's had Macca's. Anyway, we've got some news. We'll be heading to Dubbo. And we're going to be... Well, you're driving the truck. I'm observing. Am I going to get behind the wheel and have a crack at it or not?
Oh, in the yard, in a controlled environment, not on the highway, yes, because, of course, we wouldn't want to break the law or anything.
No, we're not going to break the law. But you're going to give me...
we go around the yard.
We're going to go around the yard, and I'd love to have a crack at... Oh, no, I don't want to park it. I don't think so. And your tip last time we spoke was great. Put your hands at the bottom of the wheel, turn it, and the trailer goes where your hands are going.
Yes.
Very good tip. Now, listen, Rod, we got an email from Benji, and it says, hi, long-time listeners since your days on the night shift at Triple M. I was a foundry worker at the time, and I'd have you on to keep me from making mistakes and redoing castings for rail and mining. Well, that's good to see that I've had some positive effect, Rod.
Yes, absolutely.
Nowadays, I've changed careers into support work for youth, disability and aged care. And I was listening in on an episode, he loves them all, and he's recommending it to everyone. Please, everyone, recommend it and subscribe and like and share. But anyway, about the possibility of young people who are interested in doing apprenticeships in the truck yards or trucking. As I work with a young person who is just stepping into high school next year and wants to be a trucker or even a train driver. This is big as he doesn't have any other career other than what he has set in his mind. Is there any update on a truckie apprenticeship that he can go ahead with?
There is still a program in Queensland, there is one in Victoria, and there is one in Western Australia. They are run by the state associations. And yes, there are steps afoot still, but getting things through government is hard. And the biggest problem is simply the cost. So, the industry is asking, like any other one, there's some sort of subsidy to apprenticeships to allow us to do it properly. Because, Luke, if you're going to run a truck with one driver, well, then you know what your costs are, you know how to price everything. But if you're going to run a truck with two, because really you must have training, you must have someone going out with you. And look, there are companies that operate the buddy system, and they send you out with someone on a run, and then you learn different things as you go along. But that means you are paying two people to drive one truck. And of course, if you go to your customer and say, oh, by the way, our charges are going to go up double for the next month while I train this driver. After they stop laughing and go and get somebody else to do the work, you'll go, bugger, well, that didn't work really well.
You see, if we have a national truck driver shortage, which is going to paralyse the country if we run out of truckies, you've got state governments spending millions of dollars subsidising e-bikes. Because they think it's a good idea to help people improve their modes of transport. E-bikes are green. It turns out that nearly a third of that money has gone towards purchasing illegal e-bikes. Can you believe this? Bikes that have been tweaked illegally. It's amazing what governments spend their money on. Should there be a national incentive to set up industry-approved driver training for young truckies and making it a bit easier?
It certainly should. And as we discussed last week, Luke, if you're an Aussie and you want to get into the industry, it's a lot harder for you because you've got to pay those upfront costs where someone coming from overseas virtually gets either given a license or gets given a subsidy or something. And it makes it harder for Aussie blokes to do it. Now, if he's really keen, and that used to be the thing, Luke, I was speaking to a gentleman during the week. He actually had a bloke call him up and said, how come you get to drive a big Flash 9.0? And this bloke said he's only 42, but he started at the bottom. He worked in the yard. He learned how to do tyres. He learned how to adjust brakes.
Yeah.
Learned all those things and worked his way up. And now he's in a truck which is bloody beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's one of the nicest on the highway. But he put in his apprenticeship, he put it in, and he started with his dad. He started with his uncle. He started with his family. And, of course, you can't do that now for so many different reasons. And that's a real problem.
So I think we do need a federal government-sponsored incentive apprenticeship, one that's approved by you and your esteemed colleagues. And I don't know, if we've got a truckie shortage, which means we'll all run out of fuel and food, it's almost a national emergency, Rod.
It is, but the one thing, Luke, we don't have a shortage of drivers. We have a shortage of people who want to be drivers. And that's because of the facilities, because of the fines and penalties, because of the way that we're treated, because of the fact that we do not teach people to share the road with trucks. When they go out and make a mistake, we get blamed for it, whether it's our fault or not. Again, in the press, it's a truck accident. It's not an accident involving a truck. That implies guilt by default. And then blokes are saying, I'm over this. I can earn as much money pushing a forklift, and we spoke about getting a 16-year-old forklift ticket. That's really important to get people involved and get them into the industry. And we're talking logistics. We are talking specifically now about truck driving, but logistics is the industry that overpins it. You've got allocators, you've got mechanics, you've got forklift drivers, you've got people that work in the stores. So all of those things are important, and they're all struggling too, Luke, for people and staff. But we have a shortage because of the way that we're treated. I had a mate put up a post during the week. He got held up for a random inspection. Fair enough, they checked him over. But, mate, they went through his cab. He was there for 2 hours on the side of the road for a random inspection. And realistically, there's 2 hours. That could cost him another trip. That could cost him $3,000 or $4,000 for the week.
Well, the
because he then can't get to the next place
Minister
to do
for
the next trip.
Infrastructure, Transport,
And that's
Regional
their answer
Development and
to,
Local Government is
make safety better. They
Catherine
found it for
King.
two tiny things.
I
one of
think
which
we'll
he
get
accepted, one
either
of
Kelsey
which
or
was just
Thomas
bullshit.
to line up the
And
Honourable
whenever
Catherine
that
King.
happens,
And why don't we talk to
somebody's
her
sort of,
on this
put into
segment
that position
and see if we can't see
whereby
what she has to
simply going
say.
to work to do their job. They cop this loss of time, these fines and penalties, and then, of course, they wonder why we can't get truck drivers.
Yeah. Well, the Federal Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Local Government is Catherine King. I think we'll get either Kelsey or Thomas to line up the Honourable Catherine King. And why don't we talk to her on this segment and see if we can't see what she has to say.
We should absolutely give it a try, mate.
It's on our list. I think we need to make some suggestions and see if we can't get a ball rolling on fixing up Australia's truckie. Well, you say it's not a shortage, but it's really the conditions that existing truckies work under that's making them leave. So let's have a look at it.
Those are a big part, yep.
Yeah, for sure. Now, we got an email from Katie. Let me read it. I would argue the majority of racist remarks Indian drivers face over UHF come from the ever-growing number of Muppet in their four-wheel drives that use the UHF as a form of entertainment, doing their best to deliberately wind up all truck drivers who try to use the UHF for its purpose. Getting someone to flip their lid is, it seems, their main objective. After almost 18 months of weekly runs to Brisbane, I have yet to communicate without being met with a barrage of derogatory, sexist remarks for which I have a catalogue of wit-witted responses ready to go. While this normally sets off a tirade of abuse, other truckies normally congratulate me for taking the comments in my stride and putting up with the behaviour. It just goes on. While Kelsey's view that two things can be true at the same time has merit, I believe the racism they face could almost be eliminated if the state and federal governments made the changes that we have been asking for in overseas licensing and squashing sham contracting practices. Your thoughts, Rod?
Some bloke on the radio yesterday, I've got a massive, you know what I mean? And he said, I'm just trying to tell people. And, of course, the answer is, well, you either got small hands or you've got a very small brain, and all the blood's gone to that spot, and you've got nothing left in your brain. And like some of them will actually then bite back because they've got you to respond, they've got you to answer, then they've got you, and then it just goes on from there. And we've discussed, Luke, I cannot understand the mentality of somebody who has nothing better to do with their time because they can't have a job. They're always on the radio and sits there and just tells people they've got a massive this or that. And like you say, some of it is a wind-up. If you don't answer, eventually they get bored because there's no one listening. But as soon as somebody answers, then the bloke's got his just dessert. Years ago, in the truck, you would make a mistake. We are human. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. We try very hard. But you made a mistake, you'd say to the driver, you'd call up on the UHF and say, sorry, mate, my mistake. Won't do that again. Everything okay? And the bloke would say, yeah, mate, yeah, look, I'm human too, blah, blah, blah. But now you blink. You're a millisecond late on your dipping your lights, and the bloke's abusing the Christ out of you. So the level of frustration is at a point where it's just another one of those things. So you go to work, you're never home. You're on the road, people try and kill you. You're not getting paid really well if you count the whole amount of time. I see there was an American Post says, they work 70 hours a week. But, of course, you live in the truck for 5 and 6 days and sometimes over there for months. And that's not taken into account. You can't get decent food in showers in so many places. There's not enough rest areas. And then you've got idiots that sit at home on a UHF and wind you up.
Just explain to me again, and if you've done this before, I apologise, but just to refresh our memories, why isn't the use of a UHF radio, why doesn't it come under ACMA, the Australian Communications and Media Authority, or does it?
Yep. So there was a fee, but then the CBs became so popular and they couldn't police it because how do you know going down the road? And whilst in those days they earned money from those fees, from the licence fees, they had money if you rang up and said, I'd like to lodge a complaint. There's a bloke living at Smithfield in downtown Whoop Whoop, and he gets on the radio. Now, we discussed that each radio actually has a specific frequency. So they can find you if they want to. The thing is, they don't have the people or the money from not having licenses now, and it's virtually open slather, I'm afraid.
Yeah. If abuse over a UHF radio is causing or helping to cause road rage, something's got to be done.
Well, it is, but how do you do it? Look, you go to the government, and then the next thing is what's offensive. So years ago, if you said F this and F that, everybody was offended. I'm afraid, and I even had this discussion with my son the other day, and I said, when in my day when we were kids, you never ever swore in front of women or children. And yes, blokes swore at work, but if there was a woman there, if there were kids running around, people didn't swear in front of them. You tried to do the right thing.
Exactly.
Now the women and the kids swear as much as the blokes, and you wonder where it's changed so much that is now acceptable behaviour. So if you put in a complaint that this bloke said that on the radio, oh, well, that's not really offensive, so we can't be bothered to go and do anything about it.
Okay, so you've got the government wanting to introduce hate laws. What if the language on the UHF comes under those hate or racial discrimination laws?
That's a very interesting thought, Luke. I wonder how that would go. And again, how do they police it? That's the thing. It's one thing for someone to write it online, and yes, they can track you down and they can find out who you were, as they did with some bloke last week. But if you've got, what is there? Let's say there's 100,000 radios operating out on the road. How are they going to police that? How are they going to follow it up? It's a good thought, and maybe it's something we should pursue. But is it going to actually change anything straight away?
Well, let's bring it up with the minister. That we can add that to our conversation. I guess it's a bit like people up in arms over the behaviour of kids on e-bikes, but you don't know who they are if their faces are covered and there's no licence plate.
Yes, what did you say? Is it Hong Kong or something that has where they've got to actually have licences and everything for them? Japan, sorry, yes. I knew you mentioned someplace did. And, maybe that's something that we do here. But, of course, how many people are going to support that? Oh, why should my kid have to register his bike? Rah, 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 rah. Look, do they want them to die? I'm sure that you did the interview with the bloke from the hospital, didn't you? And he said that it's just gone exponentially up from, e-bikes. And then it's one thing that how many people buy them with good intent and they're legal? Is it half? And then the other half go and buy one that does twice the speed, or they modify it and they let their kids loose in the traffic. Geez, mate, you wouldn't let them go and ride a car, at 14, well, most people wouldn't with a bit of bloody sense. But you're letting your kids out in the traffic on something that has that capability to get you killed.
Yeah.
Is that a good idea or not?
Yeah, it's interesting you should say parents will go, why should my kid be burdened with this blame? My kid would never do that. Yeah. Well, about 60 kids completely ripped up Longreef Golf Course a few weeks ago. It's believed that most of them were young men. Probably with, a groin full of testosterone. And I bet you every parent watching that video who lived locally all said that wouldn't be my boy. My boy would never do that.
No, it would have come from somewhere else.
Yeah, it was at least 60 other somebody else's kid.
Yeah. What do you do, Pete? But there should be a licence for people to have kids, shouldn't there?
You need a licence to drive, a licence to fish, a licence to do most things, but anyone can be your parent.
Yes.
Applications are now open for a share of this $4.4 million in federal funding for industry-led projects aimed at improving road safety across the heavy vehicle sector. Fill us in.
Well, mate, it's been going for a long time. This, I think, is the 11th one from what I read. I did talk to a mate about this specifically last night. Now, many years ago, I did get some funding for our green reflectors. And while we're saying thank you, I've got to say TMR, Transport and Main Roads, I've seen some new green reflectors up on the road out from Warwick. So somebody's been out and put them up. That's good of them. Transport for New South Wales have told me that there is a big program coming. So thank you to them for doing that. And also, Transport for New South Wales have finally, after only about 9 years, resurfaced the southern edge of the road into Gundawindi onto the McIntyre River. So the river is actually the border, Queensland on the north side, New South on the south. and they've just resurfaced that road, which has been bloody terrible for years. Queensland only did it a while ago. But that funding is meant to be, it's one of the only places that someone like me as a driver can ring up and say, I've got this really good idea. I drive trucks. I think that we should do this. Now, it's not as simple as that, Luke. It was initially only for government bodies, so I couldn't apply. And I actually rang and complained and said, well, what if I've got this good idea? Oh, yeah, well, that's fair. So they changed it. But again, once you apply for funding, they don't give you all the details. So I applied. Then I was told, oh, by the way, you've got to have $20 million compulsory third party. You've got to have $20 million public liability, which, of course, is not cheap. But then they wanted me to have other insurances as well. And virtually, I would have lost half the money I got to pay the insurance. So they've got to be open about it. And I fear that what they're doing now is looking at mainly technology. Now, technology can be important, but there needs to be more of a focus to involve drivers, those people out there doing it. And I don't mean just me, Luke. I mean, it could be you. Kelsey could ring up and say, oh, I've got this really good road safety idea. And sometimes those things come from people on the road. Who'd have thought, eh? But just to keep it to a real specific, it's got to be about technology, I think they're losing the chance to get people to think about it and then to get involved and come up with something usable.
All right, well, let's just give the government a little bit of credit. Apparently, to date, the Albanese government's invested more than $45 million across 181 projects. They're funded through the first 10 rounds of the HVSI. Previous successful projects have included AI-based fatigue monitoring systems, heavy vehicle safety simulators, and a range of industry-led initiatives. So far, what's the result?
Well, so far overall, mate, you would have to say that it's been a good program. It has been varied and widespread. One stage there was not only the one for AI, but there was a smart wheel. So as you actually held your hand on the steering wheel, it checked your pulse rate and it checked all this and that. Yeah, there was another one for a smart cap, and you wore the cap and it did the same sort of thing. Now, maybe they didn't get to the point where they could be commercially viable. Don't know what happened to them, but the smart wheel seemed to be a good idea. But mate, some of those things have gone on and been very successful. Some of them have had good theory and not worked as much in practice. But without a program like that, where do you get the chance to have a say and have a go? There is nowhere else, Luke. So it's a good idea. We've just got to get the best value out of it.
All right. It's all about money, but then it's about finding the staff to implement these programs properly. Now, there's some news on Ron Crouch Transport. It's been acquired by Freight Specialists. It's a Sydney headquartered operation that boasts depots across Australia and New Zealand. As we've mentioned before, Ron Crouch Transport was placed into voluntary administration last December.
And they said at the time there were a number of factors. Now, Ron was
he was very outspoken about sham contracting, Ron.
He certainly was. And he says, how can a company that pays every entitlement that it is required to do, and if you're an employee, now there was a lot of comment on Facebook from some blokes who are working as a contractor. Now they, as one person, may well have the ability and the skills to say, I'm doing this is my job, and this is what you'll pay me. And because there's a shortage of people willing to do it, some people have to pay those rates. But for the one that's getting what he believes is fair and deserves, what about the other 99 who have turned up somewhere and said, oh, yeah, mate, I'm a truck driver, I want to drive your truck. Oh, well, you've got to get an ABN and you've got to work for me as a contractor. So I'm not going to pay you holiday leave, sick leave, RDOs, workers' comp, anything like that, super. They don't pay any of that. So they're paying them half. And the other company who is trying to compete is paying everything they are required to do. The driver's getting decent money, and some bloke says, oh, but I'm okay, mate. Well, I'm afraid where that happens, the people that are doing it are cheating the government. They're cheating the drivers, and what they are doing is making it impossible, and hopefully that truck's not too noisy going past, for a company doing the right thing to compete And then, of course, they undercut them, then they go broke, and then it goes round and round. And it's called a race to the bottom.
No, that truck going by adds a little bit of actuality to our conversations because you are out there on the road. Where are you? I should have asked at the beginning.
Oh, well, I'm at our Brisbane depot, mate. You should be very impressed. I'm painting the tiny little edge of my mudguards with blue paint to match my trailers. It looks really nice, but I've been doing that while we've been talking. I've got little mud flap cutouts on the back, and I've painted all the edge of those. So I did get the truck washed on Saturday when I got in. Got a tyre blacked, spent all yesterday. I had all the dash apart. I had a bulb out in the dash, had to fix that. Got a list of jobs to do today, and then unload in the morning and reload and go back to Sydney. So I came up the Pacific Highway on Friday. Got to say, it's probably the best road in Australia now, but be nice to have a few more parking bays. The stopping bays that are there aren't properly signed. Some of them are halfway around corners, and that's not the best either. But, mate, the Hume used to be the best. It's falling apart. Big roads will not fix it. And I think I've told you I've rung 4 times over 12 months to get one bump fix, and they won't even do that. So, mate, how do we carry on when if you talk to anybody in transport at the moment, there are probably 3 things that people sitting on their bum in Canberra, and they're not going to like this, don't notice. One is that if they drive up and down at all their car, it's not a bad road. But if you drive up and down in a truck that's loaded to 68 tonne, the impacts are severe. We've got shock absorbers failing and falling off. We've got maintenance costs actually going through the roof. And then the driver must concentrate. Now, we've spoken about how you can't just sit there and think about what's happening tonight or where you're going for your next feed. You've got to be watching everyone around you, because if you don't, they're going to do something stupid. Yeah. You're going to be involved. It's a problem. But having to also watch the road, and it's not just you watching the road you're on, it's you watching the road for the car coming the other way, because the car is not going to be concentrating half the time. We know that. They think now it's so easy, the electric cars, they just sit back. You've got autonomous and all that. But what happens when it hits a big pothole or it hits a deformation? So it's a big dip, but the road's all black. It's no holes, so you're not looking for it. You're not ready for it. And all of a sudden the car swings 40 degrees to the right side into the front of the truck. Now, that level of stress on top of what we already do now is mainly a factor of the failure of the roads to be maintained properly.
Rod, can you give us an update on the changes to the Master Code? First of all, what is the Master Code of Practice, and what is its function, and what's the latest?
Again, it's one of those things, Luke, where I'm sure you walked into some company's head office one day and they've got the thing up on the thing and they've got a mission statement. Yeah, and it looks really flash and it's done in calligraphy and it says, we will do everything possible to make everybody say how fantastic we are, what a good bunch of blokes. Now, that is one thing to have it on the wall. If that doesn't transcribe and doesn't get carried down through the ranks to the drivers, again, we had a bloke, a couple of weeks ago, say that the management knew the drivers were being pushed to do certain things. I've just read an article, and we spoke last week about whistleblowers, and I don't know whether it was in response to that, but there was a piece on Facebook, and again, we know how reliable Facebook is, but a particular driver raised these issues, was howled down, was sacked. Of course, the company's got all their lawyers onto it, lost their job, and are in serious debt, and yet nothing happened to the company. Now, how can the NHVR preach that they want us to be safe, pull a bloke up on the side of the road, hold him there for 2 hours when technically, before they pulled him up, they didn't even know he was there other than the fact that he's driving a truck down the road. And yet when somebody raises these issues to that level and says, they're breaking every law there is, and that company gets, you better do that right. We're coming to inspect you, so get it right and get it better. Now, we do want them. Have you heard of an enforced undertaking, Luke?
Go on.
So back in the day, when COR came about, chain of responsibility.
Yes.
If you were found to breach COR, chain of responsibility, there were these big fines. And everybody was supposed to be scared. It was going to make you do the right thing. Now, we've spoken about, technically just recently, they've said the driver, an employed company driver, is not in the chain of responsibility, but everybody else above him is. So the bloke that loads you, he's in it because he's got to make sure it's safe. The bloke that gave you the load shouldn't tell you to hurry up. The bloke that organised the load shouldn't be trying to rip you off and get you to do it at half price. But again, to my knowledge, in the 12 years now that COR has been going, there have been so few companies or people above the driver, because the driver's getting fined on the side of the road no matter what, but it doesn't flow up from there to the company to say, you breached COR. Now, the code of practice is something done by industry. It's meant to be a guideline for people to follow. But what happens on paper and what happens on the road and what happens when your customer is pushing you to cut the rate and you're trying to find a cheaper way to do something, that's where the problem lies, Luke.
Chain of responsibility. The new master code. If you've got any thoughts, any suggestions, please let us know. lukebonaradioguy@gmail.com, and leave your voice messages for us on 0291289311. Rod Hannafy, we'll be seeing you in Dubbo soon. I'm looking forward to it. What's your message for the day? Have you got a tip for us? Have you got something for us to take away?
Mate, at this time of year, we've gone through Christmas. We know there was a terrible road toll and people were in a hurry. If people just slowed down that little bit. Now, I don't want them doing 80 in a 100 zone like the bloke I followed the other day. And, of course, you know what he did when we got to the overtaking lane, Luke.
He sped up.
He did, yes. You met that bloke too.
Oh, they're everywhere. They're everywhere.
We don't want people doing 60 in an 80 zone, and we don't want people going stupid and doing 140 to get past 3 trucks. But if they just backed off that little bit, we talked about the difference between defensive driving and advanced. Be defensive. And who are you defending, Luke? You're defending yourself against all the other idiots on the road. So how about people defend themselves and they're actually going to help others as well?
You know what? Maybe a good idea is you have a photo in your cabin of your wife or your children or both and look at them and remind yourself that someone else has a family as well.
Yes, I've said, if you imagine that every other car around you had a member of your family in it, would you risk their lives by, trying to overtake someone for 2 seconds? No, you wouldn't. Let's hope. A lot of drivers do that, mate, because we don't get home to see them enough. But anything that we can do to save lives, because the government doesn't seem to have the solutions, and that's why those things where you get, things from drivers could be really important for those HVSI funds to see the roads improve, not just for truckies, but for everyone.
Rod Hannafy, always good to talk to you. Safe trucking, mate. See you in Dubbo very, very soon, and you take care of yourself.
10-4, good buddy. Safe travelling to all.
Thank you so much for being with us for another exciting episode of the Bonafide podcast. Plenty more still to come, and we'll catch up with you soon. Remember your Nature Bee. It'll get you through the day. You'll fly high with Nature Bee, powerpollen.com.au, naturebee.com. And my thought for the day. Are you ready for this?
Yes, I can't wait. Yeah, what is it?
Never, ever pick a fight with an ugly person.
Why?
They have nothing to lose.
Yep, that makes sense. That's actually one of the more logical ones that you said. So I agree with that.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
And a quick reminder, Power Bee from Nature Bee, the full meal replacement. Power pollen, beautiful chocolate flavour. And if you spend over $79.90, and basically 2 intro packs for you and a friend, and then you're in the running to win a $20,000 bucket list travel experience of a lifetime. That competition ends Friday, January 30, so don't let it slip. Head to naturebee.com